Okay, everyone. I think Carrie's going to pop in a minute, I hope. But we're here, ready for the debates. Hopefully you can hear me better today. I know yesterday was a pain in the ass. So I got my bingo card. So get your bingo cards. If you haven't gone, I think the URL is in the description of the video. We had to switch URLs. I'm in a foul mood because of Zoom, which we pay for, which always seems to fail. So anyway, we switched URLs, but the link to printing out bingo cards is in the description of the video. Carrie is out tweeting that link to other people right now. So she'll be just a few minutes. I wanted to wear, so Carrie, it's too bad she's not here for this, but Carrie had these shirts. She wanted these shirts made. Let's see if I can show them to you.
Oh, yes. I'm here. You just can't see me.
All right. So I think probably everyone saw the video that Scott had sort of the overview of the candidates. Maybe you guys, hey, people are in chat. Hey guys, my font is so kerned. Maybe, what was I going to say? I totally lost my train of thought. Oh, maybe you guys have some thoughts on this, but maybe just because I'm a nerd or whatever. I wrote down one adjective for each of the candidates in tonight's debate. Like my impression going in, I don't follow them too much, but I looked them up, each of them. And so I have one adjective for each candidate, and I'm going to see if the adjective changes between now and the end of the debate. So I'll just share with you my adjectives. The first one is for Michael Bennett. My adjective for him was predictable. The second one was Joe Biden. My adjective for him is, you guessed it. The next is Pete Buttigieg. Still don't know how to say his last name. My adjective for him is oblivious. Kristen Gillibrand, nosy. Kamala Harris, ruthless. John Hickenlooper, benign. Bernie Sanders, cantankerous. Eric Swalwell, sociopathic. Marianne Wilson, apocryphal. And Andrew Yang, cavalier. So that's my impression of these clowns going into this thing. And who knows? Who knows what it'll be like? Let's see if I can get Carrie on. Carrie?
I'm here. You just have to start. You have to start my video.
Oh. I had no idea. So here she comes in all of her glory, the bad mamma jamma.
I'm just posting this link in the
That's
final
cool.
place. Okay. I think we're done now.
So Carrie,
Hi.
I don't know if you know this.
What?
So according to like Google and the rest of the world, Tulsi Gabbard seems to have won. Tulsi and Cory Booker were the two main ones. Most of the stuff I saw was Tulsi was the most interesting candidate. But all of the mainstream media was all about Elizabeth Warren. They really love Elizabeth Warren. They're really trying to push her. They really, really love. I think it's just because she's a vituperous SJW, and there's nothing hotter than that. So, but yeah, they're really. Did you notice how much they're pushing her?
Well, I noticed that some of the roundups of clips, they showed like a clip from everyone except Tulsi.
They hate her.
They hate her. It's like somebody I was watching, I think it was Revenge of the Sith, said they're trying to Ron Paul her.
Yeah, totally they are. because, which is interesting actually, because Ron Paul, probably the thing they disliked about him most was his foreign policy, which I think is the only real thing that Tulsi differs from most of the Democrats on, is her foreign policy. She doesn't want endless war, which is one good thing about one Democrat. There you go. So I'm looking forward.
The Democrats are no longer the anti-war party. I mean, that's one of the reasons you have people walking away. It's because they've changed. Like I like to say, people who try and accuse me of no longer being liberal because I voted for a Republican in November. I'm like, well, as soon as if the Democratic Party returns to liberal values, if they run a liberal, then I'll vote for that liberal. But they're not running any liberals.
No.
I don't know.
We're getting ready to go here. Look at this. Hopefully my sound should be better, but anyone, including Herman, when he gets into the chat, feel free to yell at me about my sound. But I think it's better. I did a test recording. It seemed fine. So we'll try that. Let's see. I'm going to turn this up. Let me know if the volume of the TV echoes in a weird way and bothers you guys.
By the way, I know this is supposed to be a party and we're supposed to bring popcorn and peanuts, but I'm eating dinner, so I hope you don't mind.
I haven't eaten dinner, but at some point there might be broccoli and chicken delivered in here and you'll see me eat that. So.
Oh yeah, I just got some tuna and broccoli and peas and carrots and a salad delivered. And it's a party food.
Yeah. So what do they put the highest polling person in the middle? So that's Biden and then Bernie.
Is that the way they do it?
I think so.
Should we be able to hear them right now? Because we can't. Just so you know.
No, I can't hear.
People on
now
the
you
stage.
can.
Okay. Folks on the stage last.
I just have them off because I don't really give a shit about what the
intro. Yeah. Keep them off. That's fine. I also heard some people saying that last night was just last night were the debates where they determine who's going to be the vice president.
Maybe.
Where did you get that creepy clown music, by the way, at the beginning that you do the intro with?
Oh, I don't know. Online somewhere. I don't remember. The weird, it's like weird hip hop eerie music.
Yeah. I think it would work well in like a Halloween movie.
Yeah, I was looking for like creepy, ominous music. That's where I found it. But check. Yeah, maybe they'll talk, or they could speak in Swahili. Actually, Farsi would be good. What's the next? Probably the next largest non-English speaking demographic is Chinese, after Hispanic, right?
So I don't speak Spanish, regrettably, but I did hear some native Spanish speakers talking today about how, and I wouldn't have known this is why I'm bringing it up, about how Beto, even though he's not great at pronouncing things, you can tell that he understands and knows the language. But Cory Booker, who pronounced everything so beautifully, they're like, you can tell he doesn't actually know the language. He phonetically memorized how to say a sentence.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
He also got some press for giving a little bit of stink eye over to Beto when Beto started.
Oh yeah. He's like, that's my thing.
Yeah. My advisors told me to do that. Damn you.
Right. And I've only got one sentence.
Yeah. I know. All right, here we go. Let's witness the farce.
Good evening, I'm Lester Holt, and welcome to night 2 of the first Democratic debate in the 2020 race for president.
Good evening, I'm Savannah Guthrie. Last night, we heard from 10 candidates, and now 10 more take the stage.
And again tonight, we'll be joined in the questioning by our colleagues, Jose Diaz-Balart, Chuck Todd, and Rachel Maddow.
The candidates are in position, so let's get started.
Tonight, round 2, Colorado Senator Michael Bennet, former Vice President Joe Biden, South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg, New York Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, California Senator Kamala
Gillibrand,
Harris,
that's how you say it. And it's
Colorado
Kirsten.
Governor John
Clearly, I
Kasich,
don't like her.
Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, California Congressman Eric
He is the
Swalwell,
worst of like
Mary
everyone on
Louise
stage.
He's such a phony.
He is, I think he's literally sadistic. I think you missed my one adjective description of each candidate at the beginning, but my description for him was sociopathic. I really think he's sociopathic.
How does Bernie look 20 years younger in his photo, says Jenny. Did Bernie comb his hair? Oh, I did see a funny tweet today from the conservative Ann Coulter. She was like, can we just talk about Elizabeth Warren's skincare? Like, she's 70 and her skin looks amazing.
Who?
Elizabeth Warren.
70?
Yeah.
Wow.
About the future of the country, how to tackle our most pressing problems, and getting to the heart of the biggest issues in this Democratic
You
primary.
are our
Today, we're
most
gonna
pressing
talk about
problem,
healthcare,
media.
Immigration. We're also going to dive into the economy, jobs, climate change as well.
And some quick rules of the road before we begin, and they may sound familiar. 20 candidates qualified for this first debate. As we said, we heard from 10 last night, and we'll hear from 10 more tonight. The breakdown for each night was selected at random. The candidates will have 60 seconds to answer, 30 seconds for any follow-up.
And because of the large field of candidates, not every person is going to be able to weigh in on every topic. But over the course of the next 2 hours, we will hear from everyone.
And we love our audience, but we
Look how
like to ask
uncomfortable
them to keep their
Swalwell is. His
reactions
body
to a
language is so
minimum.
stiff
We're
and
not
wooden,
gonna
and
hold
he's like
back, making sure
unsure of what to do with his
candidates stick to time.
hands.
So with that business taken care of, let's get to it. And we're going to start today with Senator Sanders. Good evening to you. You've called for big new government benefits like universal health care and free college. In a recent interview, you said you suspected that Americans would be, quote, delighted to pay more taxes for things like that. My question to you is, will taxes go up for the
They'll be
middle class
delighted.
in a Sanders
And
administration?
delighted.
They
No,
can
how do you
voluntarily
sell that
pay
to
if they're
voters?
delighted.
Well, you're quite right. We have a
Will you
new
turn your TV volume just a bit up?
time when we have
How's
three
that, Fox
people
Mom?
in this country
Better?
owning more wealth than the bottom half of America. While 500,000 people are sleeping out on the streets today, we think it is time for change, real change. And by that, I mean that healthcare,
Hey, it's
in
Sal.
my view, is a human right.
Welcome to the
And
circus,
we have
Sal.
got to pass a Medicare for all single-payer system.
Blah, blah, blah,
Under that
Medicare for all.
system, by the way, vast majority of the people in this country will be paying significantly less for healthcare than they are right now. I believe that education is the future for this country. And that is why I believe that we must make public colleges.
Oh, thank you,
and
Broken Umbrella. We're at
universities
healthcare as a
tuition-free
human right.
and eliminate student debt. And we do that by placing a tax on Wall Street.
Let's see, what do we have?
Every proposal that I have brought forth is fully paid for.
Senator Sanders, I'll give you 10 seconds just to answer the very direct question. Will you raise taxes for the middle class in a Sanders administration?
People who have health care under Medicare for all will have no premiums, no
not
deductibles, no
answering.
co-payments,
What a
no
shock.
out-of-pocket expenses. Yes, they will pay more in taxes, but less in health care for what they get.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Bennett,
He
we're
is
going to
a
get to
comedy,
everybody,
right.
I promise, but let me just, Senator Biden, promise, everybody's going to get in here, promise. Vice President Biden.
Biden, shut down.
Senator Sanders, as you know, has been calling for a revolution. Recently, in remarks to a group of wealthy donors, as you were speaking about the problem of income inequality in this country, you said, we shouldn't, quote, demonize the rich. You said, nobody has to be punished. No one's standard of living would change. Nothing would fundamentally change. What did you mean by that?
What I meant by that is, look, Donald Trump thinks Wall Street built America. Ordinary middle-class Americans build America. My dad used to have an expression. He said, Joe,
Obama
a job
thinks
is
he
about
built
a lot
America.
more
Where were
than a
you?
paycheck. It's about your dignity. It's about respect. It's being able to look your kid in the eye and say everything's going to be okay. Too many people who are in the middle class and poor have at the bottom fall out under this proposal. What I'm saying is that we've got to be
He has good presidents, Biden does. Like he comes off real like a guy you could have a conversation with.
That is covered.
I
and
wouldn't
they
want a
can
conversation
afford
with
it.
that man.
They have to make sure that we're in a
I don't
situation
know
where there's
what guys you want
continuing
conversations with.
and they're able
I'm just saying he comes off like he's a common man a little bit.
Comes off like he's low IQ and
Donald
creepy
Trump has put us in a
to me,
horrible
but you know,
situation.
hey,
We do have
common man.
enormous income inequality. And the one thing I agree on is we can make massive cuts in the $1.6 trillion in tax loopholes out there. And I would be going about eliminating Donald Trump's tax cuts for the wealthy.
Vice President Biden, thank you. Senator Harris.
Does that count as Orange Man bad? I guess we'll have that one later if we can wait.
There's a lot of talk in this primary about new government benefits, such as student loan cancellation, free college, health care.
Free college.
Free everything.
Democrats have a responsibility to explain how they will pay for every proposal they make along those lines.
Nah.
Well, let me tell you something. I hear that question, but where was that question when the Republicans and Donald Trump passed a tax bill that benefits the top 1% and the biggest corporations in the
Ah, there we go. Wait. Oh, no, that's not the thing. Did you say millionaires and billionaires?
The debt of America, which middle-class families will pay for one way or another. Working families need support and need to be lifted up. And frankly, this economy is not working for working people. For too long, the rules have been written in the favor of the people who have the most and not in favor of the people who work the most, which is why I am proposing that we change the tax code.
You ever
So for
found a
every
company,
family that
bitch?
is making less than
CEOs work
$100,000 a
way
year,
harder than
they will
most
receive
people.
a tax credit that they can collect up to $500 a
So
month.
she's one of my least favorite personally.
Yeah, but I think you get the nomination.
With dignity and with support or not. And on day one, I will repeal that tax bill that benefits the top 1% and the biggest corporations.
She is one of the worst. Like she's like overtly Napoleon, basically.
You warned that Democrats will lose in 2020 if they embrace socialism, as you put it. You were booed at the California Democratic Convention when you said that. Only one candidate on this stage, Senator Sanders, identifies himself as a
Wait,
Democrat.
who's this guy?
What are the policies or
He's like
positions
the
of your
actually
opponents that you
a
think
weirdly
are veering
centrist,
towards socialism?
fiscally kind of conservative
think
sort of governor
The
of
bottom
Colorado.
line is if we don't clearly define that we are not socialists, the Republicans are going to come at us every way they can and call us socialists. And if you look at the Green New Deal, which I admire the sense of urgency and how important it is to do climate change, I'm a scientist, but we can't promise every American a government job. If you want to get universal health care coverage, I believe that health care is a right and not a privilege. But you can't expect to eliminate private insurance
We
for
should just have healthcare as a right for all the squares.
I'm gonna say, can I just have a
Colorado, we
sheet
brought
that says
businesses
healthcare is a
and
right
nonprofits
everywhere?
Together, we got to near universal healthcare coverage. We were the first state in America to bring the environmental community and the oil and gas industry to aggressively address methane emissions. And we were also the first place to expand reproductive rights on a scale basis, and we reduced teen pregnancy by 54%. We've done the big progressive things that people said couldn't be done. I've done what pretty much everyone else up here is still talking about doing.
All right, Governor, thank you. Senator Sanders.
And
I'll
I'm
give you a
humble.
chance to weigh in here. What is your response to those who say nominating a socialist would reelect Donald Trump?
Well, I think the responses at the polls, last poll I saw had us 10 points ahead of Donald Trump because the American people understand.
But the polls
Well, had Trump losing.
That Trump
Yeah.
is a logical liar and a racist, and that he lied
Oh, racist.
to American people.
Wait, racism is
during
one of
his
these things, right?
campaign.
Yeah.
He said he was going to stand up for working
And that's Trump
families.
bad also. That's
Well,
two,
President Trump,
Kerry.
You're not standing up for working families when you try to throw 32 million people off the health care that they have, and then 83% of your tax benefits go to the top 1%. That's how we beat Trump. We expose him for the fraud that he is.
Yeah, that's a Trump bad. You can cross that one off. Maybe.
Agree with both their perspectives. The debate we're having in our party right now is confusing because the truth is there's a big difference between capitalism on the one hand and greed on the other. And so all the things that we're trying to change, is when companies care more about profits when they do about people. So if you're talking about ending gun violence, it's the greed of the NRA.
This is literally word salad where these concepts are not actually connected at all. They're just all in the same sentence.
Wait a minute. The greed of the NRA? The NRA is the only organization that's standing up for our Second Amendment rights.
No, they're not. But that's
really, they're not. But
NRA sucks. I fucking hate the NRA. They do not protect your gun rights. They haven't opposed anything.
It's possible to write policy that have no basis in
reality.
Well,
they send me letters all the time.
Were you referring to any candidate or proposal in particular when you said that?
Sheesh.
Yes, that was
thank you. That sounded like me. Thank you.
It was you.
I appreciate it. Well, look, first of all, I agree completely with Bernie about what the fundamental challenge we're facing as a country is. 40 years of no economic growth for 90% of the American people. 160,000 families in the top 0.1% have the same wealth as the bottom 90%. And we've got the worst income inequality that we've had in 100 years. Where I disagree is on his solution of Medicare for all.
Really,
you know, I have proposed getting to universal health care, which we need to do. It is a right. Healthcare is a right. We need to get to universal health care.
We should have printed healthcare as a right all over this.
That is by finishing the work we started with Obamacare.
Yeah, GOA is better. So is JPFO.
That every family and every person in America can make a choice for their family about whether they want a public option, which for them would be like having Medicare for all, or whether they want to keep their private insurance. I believe we will get there much more quickly if we do that.
But wait,
Bernie, if I could just finish, Bernie mentioned that the taxes that we'd have to pay, because of those taxes, Vermont rejected Medicare for all.
Senator,
we are
going to talk about healthcare at length, Senator, but for the moment, my colleague will say,
I wrote the part in Senator Sanders' bill. I wrote the part in Senator Sanders' bill that is the transition, which merges what the two senators said.
Senator,
because the truth is, if you have a buy-in over a 4 or 5 year period, you move us to single payer more quickly.
Senator, we will get
I really don't like the way she pluralizes Sanders. Sanders is...
Say hello and good evening. Buenas noches to Mayor Buttigieg.
Buenas noches, gracias de invitarnos.
I grew up in her district, actually.
Many of your colleagues...
Oh, was that Spanish? Did we just get Spanish?
College. You do not. Why not?
Sure. So
I wasn't big. Yeah, he's Spanish. We get to do that.
Justin and I have 6-figure student debt.
Go Pete. Thanks, man.
Debt. It's logical to me that if you can refinance your house, you ought to be able to refinance your student
Spandering. That's a fucking awesome word, Broken Umbrella. Thank you. I'm using it now.
Students for whom cost could be a barrier. I just don't believe it makes sense to ask working class families to subsidize even the children of billionaires. I think the children of the wealthiest Americans can pay at least a little bit of tuition. And while I want
billionaires, millionaires,
I don't think we can buy down every last penny for them. Now, there's something else that doesn't get talked about in the college affordability debate. Yes, it needs to be more affordable in this country to go to college. It also needs to be more affordable in this country to not go to college. You should be able to live well, afford rent, be generous to your church and Little League. Whether you went to college or not, that's one of many reasons we need to raise the minimum wage to at least $15.
Minimum wage.
Minimum wage.
Yeah,
this is much faster than last night.
Yeah.
Count on the people who've been in government for the last 30 years, who were around when this problem was
these people brought their A
created,
game.
to be the ones to solve it. It's going to be the next generation, the 40 million of us who can't start a family, can't take a good idea and start a business, and can't buy our first home. This is the generation that's going to be able to solve student loan debt.
Please say Russia.
Someone needs to turn his power button off. I don't like him.
To give every adult in the United States $1,000 a month, no questions asked.
That's right.
I think that's
like
$3.2 trillion a year. How would you do that?
I'll print
Sorry? How would you do that?
Oh, so it's difficult to do if you have companies like Amazon, trillion-dollar tech companies paying literally zero in taxes while they're closing 30% of our stores. Now, we need to put the American people in position to benefit from all these innovations in other parts of the economy. And if we had a value-added tax at even half the European level, it would generate over $800 billion in new revenue, which combined with the money in our hands, it would be the trickle-up economy from our people, families, and communities up. We would spend the money and it would circulate through our regional economies and neighborhoods, creating millions of jobs, making our families stronger and healthier. We'd save money on things like incarceration, homelessness services, emergency room health care, and just the value gains from having a stronger, healthier,
So
mentally
is
healthy.
part of his plan to get rid of things like welfare? If he's giving everyone $1,000, is that it?
I don't think so.
It's why Donald Trump is our president today, that we automated away 4 million manufacturing jobs in Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. And we're about to do the same thing to millions of retail jobs, call center jobs, fast food jobs, truck driving jobs, and on and on through the economy.
Sir, if I get you understand a little bit better, so you're saying $1,000 a month for everyone over 18, but a value added tax so you can spend that $1,000 on.
Andrew says yes. That's his plan when he brought it up on Rogan anyway.
End up,
what, to get rid of the other stuff?
Yeah, to get rid of social services because you're giving everyone $1,000 anyway.
Okay.
For a mild value add tax to eat up $12,000 a year per individual. So for the average family with 2 or 3 adults, it'd be $24,000 to $36,000 a year.
Okay, Congressman Swalwell, I talked a little bit about what Mr. Yang is talking about, and you just actually mentioned it. Many Americans are worried that things like self-driving cars, robots, drones, artificial intelligence will cost them their jobs. What would you do to help
Or
people
demonetize
get the
their YouTube
skills
channel?
they
You
need
never know
to
what it'll do.
adapt to this new world?
We must always be a country where technology creates more jobs than it displaces. And I've seen the anxiety across America where the manufacturing floors go from 1,000 to 100 to 1. So we have to modernize our
Remind
schools,
me, Carrie,
value
to
the
talk
teachers who
about how
prepare our kids, wipe the student debt
the
from any
machines
teacher that
replacing
goes into a
humans is a
community
myth.
that needs it. Invest in America's communities, especially where the best exports are people who move away to get skills. But Jose, I was 6 years old when
I
the
don't know that,
president.
Carter. I think these guys are machines who've replaced humans.
It's time to pass the torch
I don't think they
to a
can
new
pass for humans.
generation of Americans. Candidate was then Senator Joe Biden. Joe Biden was right when he said it was time to pass the torch to a new generation of Americans 32 years ago. He's still right today. If we're going to solve the issues of automation, pass the torch. If we're going to solve the issues of climate chaos.
Oh, Swalwell is running for vice president.
Like Rob Joey.
If we're going to end gun violence for families who are fearful of sending their kids to school, pass the torch.
Vice President, would you like to sing a torch song?
I would. I'm still holding on to that torch. I want to make it clear to you, look, the fact of the matter is, what we have to do is make sure that everybody is prepared better to go on to educate for an education. The fact is that's why I propose us focusing on schools that are in distress. That's why I think we should triple the amount of money we spend for Title I schools. That's why I think we
Just so we're clear, he just complimented Biden, right? And then gave him the floor.
from high school.
Well, he said
6,500
Biden used to say
need
this. I think he was
something
implying
beyond
that,
high
and he
school,
said Biden
and we
needs to
should
pass the
provide for
torch.
them to be
Oh,
able
okay. Okay.
Biden's
Never mind.
dinosaur. He used to have it right.
Okay,
there
I
now.
misinterpreted.
the cost of college. That's why we should be in a position where we do not have anyone have to pay back the student debt when they get out. They're making less than $25,000 a year. Their debt is frozen, no interest payment until they get beyond that. We can't put people in a position where they aren't able to go on and move on. And so, folks, there's a lot we can do, but we have to make continuing education available for everyone so that everyone can compete in the 21st century. We're not doing that now.
Senator Sanders.
As the youngest guy on the stage, I feel like I probably ought to contribute to the generation.
Youngest guy on the stage. He wants to talk.
Part of Joe's generation, let me respond.
Before we move
The
on
issue, if I may say.
Yeah, Bernie and Kirsten, go at it.
They're just all talking over each other.
The issue is who has the guts to
This
take
is what
on
social justice
Wall
warriors
Street,
do. They don't know how to deal with it when there's two of them
fuel
arguing.
industry, to take on the big money interests who have unbelievable influence over
Sorry,
the
Andrew.
economic and political life
Sometimes I
of
just
this
don't know what to
country.
say.
It's
I don't know.
highly unethical. Senator Harris, we will let all of you speak. Senator Harris.
This is great. Can this go on? I love this.
We will let you all speak. Senator Harris.
Can't understand anything.
Yeah,
You
they're
know
all talking
what?
over each other.
America does not want to witness a food fight. They want to know how we're going to put food on their table.
See, people like Kamala.
But how do we put food on our family? Do you remember that George Bush quote? The W quote?
I've been traveling around the country. I certainly have I'm meeting people who are working 2 and 3 jobs. You know, this president walks around talking about and flouting his great economy, right? My great economy, my great economy. You ask him, well, how are you measuring this greatness of this economy of yours? And he talks about the stock market. Well, that's fine if you own stocks. So many families in America do not. You ask them, how are you measuring the greatness of this economy of yours? And they point to the jobless numbers and the unemployment numbers. Well, yeah, people in America are working. They're working 2 and 3 jobs. So when we talk about jobs, let's be really clear. In our America, no one should have to work more than 1 job to have a roof over their head and food on the table. Thank you very much.
See, she's I think people like her. I hate her, which is why I think she'll win.
She is one. Yeah, she and Swalwell and Beto are probably my.
That spurred a lot of discussion, as you know. We're going to do it
got the
again
Trump
now.
card.
Many people watching at home have health insurance of their employer. Who here would abolish their private health insurance in favor of a government-run plan?
Yes.
All right. Kristen Gillibrand, Senator Gillibrand.
Yeah, so now it's my turn. Good. So this is a very important issue. So the plan that Senator Sanders and I and others support, Medicare for All, is how you get to single payer. But it has a buy-in transition period, which is really important.
Too, Brown.
In 2005,
I'm
when
going to call
I
you
ran
Charlie
for
Brown. I
Congress
know
in
your
a
email, but I
2-to-1
forgot your first
Republican
name.
district,
You probably want to
I actually ran on Medicare for All, and I won that 2-to-1 Republican district twice. And the way I formulated it was simple. Anyone who doesn't have access to insurance they like, they could buy in at a percentage of
Well,
income.
I'm embarrassed that I think I voted for Kamala Harris when I was in California.
Our Medicare for All plan.
I'm sure you did.
I believe we need to get to universal health care as a right and not a privilege to single payer. The quickest way you get there is you create competition with the insurers. God bless the insurers if they want to compete.
Keith,
they
you're
can
not supposed to
certainly
be
try,
judging on
but
looks.
they've never put people over their profits, and I doubt they ever will. So what will happen is people will choose Medicare, you will transition, we will get to Medicare for All, and then your step to single payer is so short.
When does Marianne Williamson get to speak?
Like
I don't know, but I
Social
gotta say, like,
so that you buy in your whole
people are
life,
going to
and
be
it's always
super
there for
bored
you,
with this.
and it's
Like,
permanent,
healthcare
and
is
it's
just so
universal.
such a boring, it's a wonkish healthcare
Mayor Buttigieg,
where they argue over each
Yeah,
other.
we've taught, look, everybody who says Medicare for all, every person in politics who allows that phrase to escape their lips has a responsibility to explain how you're actually supposed to get from here to there. And here's how I would do it. It's very similar. I would call it Medicare for all who want it. You take something like Medicare.
How old is this kid?
Available
He's
on the
37.
exchanges. People can buy in. And then if people like us are right, that will be not only a more inclusive plan, but a more efficient plan than any of the corporate answers out there, then it will be a very natural glide path to the single payer environment. But let's remember, even in countries that have outright socialized medicine,
It's slowing
like
down
England,
here.
even there's still a private sector. That's fine. It's just that for our primary care, we can't be relying on the tender mercies of the corporate system. This one's very personal for me. I started out this year dealing with the terminal illness of my father. I make decisions for a living, and nothing.
I make decisions for a living. And every business owner died.
Bankrupt our family because of Medicare. And I want every family to have that same freedom to do what is medically right, not live in financial.
Your time is complete.
What is that? What is that
Alec.
quote?
One of the architects.
Not all heroes wear capes. I make decisions for a living.
Corey should have a cape.
My wife
I
and
know he's
daughter
not
were
on
killed in
stage
an
right
real
now.
accident. My
Just
two
thought of it.
boys were really very badly injured. I couldn't imagine what it'd be like had I not had adequate.
And now we're all going
healthcare
to talk about our.
while
I once had.
And
You
then
should
when
want to
my
see
son
this
came
thing on
home
my
from
foot.
Iraq after a year.
I once had a
diagnosed
problem
with
with
terminal
my
cancer.
prostate.
And he was given months to live. I can't fathom what would have happened if, in fact, they said, by the way, the last 6 months of your life, you're on your own. We're cutting off. You've used up your time. The fact of the matter is that the quickest, fastest way to do it is build on Obamacare, to build on what we did. And secondly, to make sure that everyone does have an option. Everyone,
His whole
whether they
thing
have
is
private
basically more
insurance,
Obama.
employer insurance, or no insurance, they in fact can buy in the exchange to a Medicare-like plan. And the way to do that, we can do it quickly. Look, urgency matters. There's people right now facing what I faced and what we faced without any of the help I had. We must move now. I'm against any Democrat who opposes, that takes down Obamacare, and then a Republican who wants to get rid of it.
Let me turn to Senator Sanders. Senator Sanders, you basically want to scrap the private health insurance system as we know it and replace it with a government-run plan. None of the states that have tried something like that, California, Vermont, New York has struggled with it, have been successful. If politicians can't make it work in those states, how would you implement it on a national level? How does this work?
Listen, I find
It worked in
hard
Cambodia.
to believe that every other major country on earth, including my neighbor 50 miles north of me, Canada, somehow has figured out a way to provide health care to every man, woman, and child.
And where do they
in
go
most
when they're in
cases,
dire need
they're
and need
spending
great medical
50% per capita what we are
50
spending.
miles south.
Let's be clear. Let us be very clear. The function of health care today, from the insurance and drug company perspective, is not to provide quality care to all in a cost-effective way. The function of the healthcare system
so
today
unregulated
is
today.
to make billions in profits for the insurance companies. And last year, if you could believe it, while we pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs, and I will lower prescription drug prices in half in this country, top 10 companies made $69
I think, by the way, we pay the highest prices for
They
everything.
will spend hundreds of millions of dollars lying to the American people, telling us why we cannot have a Medicare.
I just have to follow up.
Carter, do you understand his appeal yet?
How do you implement it on a national given the fact that it's not something that other states have tried?
I will tell you.
No, it's not envy. He inspires people. Like he has charisma.
We will have Medicare for all when tens of millions of people are prepared to stand up and tell the insurance companies and the drug companies that their day is gone, that healthcare is a human right, not something to make huge profits off.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Williamson, I'm going to get Ms. Williamson.
Oh, hi, John.
Excuse me, I'm addressing the question, Ms. Williamson. We've been talking a lot about access to health insurance.
Here we go. Here
For
she
many
is.
Americans,
Mama's
the most
gonna talk.
pressing concern
Oh, awesome.
cost of health care. How would you lower the cost of prescription drugs?
Well, first of all, the government should never have made the deal with the big pharma that they couldn't negotiate. That was just part of the regular corruption by which multinational corporations have their way with us. You know, I want to say that while I agree with, I'm with Senator Bennett and others, but I agree with almost everything here. I'll tell you one thing. It's really nice that we've got all these plans, but if you think we're going to beat Donald Trump by just having all these plans, you've got another thing coming. Because he didn't win by saying he had a plan. He won by simply saying, make America great again.
She's right.
Yeah, she's right.
As important as they are. Even if we're just talking
She knows
about
how to sell snake oil. She knows what
ladies
she's
and
doing.
gentlemen, we don't have a health care system in the United States. We have a sickness care system in the United States. We just wait till somebody gets sick, and then we talk about who's going to pay for the treatment and how they're going to be treated. What we need to talk about
So much better than I thought she was going to do.
Unnecessary chronic illnesses, so many more compared to other
No,
countries.
she was not on Housewives. This is Marianne Williamson. She's like a spiritual, new age kind of guru who's friends with Oprah.
So your time is expired.
She sells crystals down in Santa Monica on the beach.
Senator Bennett, a question for you. You want to keep the system that we have in place with Obamacare and build on it. You mentioned that a moment ago. Is that enough to get us to universal coverage?
I believe that will get us the quickest way there. And I thought the Vice President was very moving about this, and Mayor Pete as well. I had prostate cancer recently, as you may know.
Oh, my God.
So I was a little late
Seriously,
getting in
can we
the race.
stop
The
hearing
same
about your
week,
medical
my
conditions?
kid had a rapidectomy out. And I feel very
I was
strongly
joking
that
when I said I
families ought
had
to be able to
prostate
have
cancer
this
recently.
choice.
I didn't-
think that's
that
what
wasn't
the
a
American people
recommendation.
want. I believe it
talk
will
about
get us
that.
there quickly. There are millions of people in America that do not have health insurance today because they can't. They're too wealthy. They make too much money to be on Medicaid. They can't afford health insurance. When Senator Sanders says that Canada is single payer, there are 35 million people in Canada. 330 million people in the United States.
Chat says, I don't want to hear about his balls.
Gosh, and it could
I
easily
hate
be
to say it,
35
but I think
million.
he needs
And for
humanity.
them, it would be Medicare for all, as
You're
Mayor
hearing about it,
Buttigieg
that.
says. But for others that want to keep it, they should be able to keep it. And I think that will be the fastest way to get where we need to go. Also, I will say, Bernie is a very honest person. He has said over and over again, unlike others that have supported this legislation,
Guy wants to
over
be
and over
VP.
again, that
He's
this will
pushing for
ban,
VP.
make illegal all insurance except cosmetic. except insurance for, I guess that's for plastic surgery.
What about gender reassignment surgery?
Everything else is banned.
Let's
Under the
debate that.
Medicare for all proposal
I'd
that he
like
has
to go a little longer there, but obviously, Senator Sanders, you get a response. Senator Sanders, you
just very briefly. You know, Mike, Medicare is the most popular health insurance program in the country. People don't like their private insurance companies. They like their doctors and hospitals. Under our plan, people go to any doctor they want, any hospital they want. We will substantially lower the cost of healthcare in this country because we'll stop the greed of the insurance companies.
On this issue, we have to think about how this affects real people. And the reality of how this affects real people is captured in a story that many of us heard, and I will paraphrase. There is, any night in America, a parent who's seeing that their child has a temperature that is out of control,
another
calls
medical
911,
condition.
what should
This
I
is the
do?
most-
And they say, take
What
the
the
child
fuck
to
is
the
this
emergency
debate?
room. And so they
What
get
is
in their
this
car,
debate,
and
anyone?
they drive, and
They're telling stories, Carter.
They're telling medical stories.
At those
Like
sliding glass doors,
the
while
one
they have the
story no
hand
one
on the
ever
forehead
really
of their
wants to hear
child,
unless you're really close friends and
knowing
care about
that
someone.
if
But
they
you
walk
never want to
through
hear
those
about a stranger's
sliding
medical
glass
story.
doors, even though they have insurance,
That's all they're doing. All
they will be out a
Trump will
$5,000
kick their
deductible,
ass if this is how
$5,000
they
deductible
behave.
when they walk through those
Senator-
doors.
Senator
That's what
Harris,
insurance companies are doing in America today.
We're going to continue this discussion.
No, really, broken umbrella.
I was just in the emergency room. I
Candidates,
hate my
please.
vote. I'm one of those parents. I was just in the emergency room, and I'm telling you.
Congressman, thank you.
I was
I
just
was just at the emergency room. I wish I had put a couple different medical conditions on this bingo card.
Fine. If you're sick, you're seen, and in America, you never go broke because of it.
Okay.
With
A lot of you have been
Okay,
talking
you got your
tonight
camera on.
about these government health care plans that you
Like an ugly
proposed in one
pinball.
form or another. This is a show of hands question, and hold them up for a moment
that's not
so people can see. Raise your hand if your government plan would provide coverage for undocumented immigrants.
Oh my gosh. Look at all those people applauding that taxpayer money is going to cover health insurance. Nonsense.
Our country
He's
is
listening. I
healthier
just wanted to see.
when everybody
That's
is
all I want.
healthier.
What?
And
What'd you say?
we're talking about something people are given a chance to buy into. In the same way that there are undocumented immigrants in my community who they pay sales taxes, they pay property taxes directly or indirectly. This is not about a handout. This is an insurance program. And we do ourselves no favors by having 11 million undocumented people in our country be unable to access healthcare. But of course, the real problem is we shouldn't have 11 million undocumented people with no pathway to citizenship. It makes no sense. And the American people agree on what to do. This is the crazy thing. If leadership consists of forming a consensus around a divisive issue, this White House has divided us around a consensus issue. The American people want a pathway to citizenship. They want protections for dreamers. We need to clean up the lawful immigration system, like how my father immigrated to this country. And as part of a compromise, we can do whatever common sense measures are needed at the border. But Washington can't deliver on something the American people want. What does that tell you about the system we're living in? It tells you it needs
Mayor,
profound structural reform.
Vice President Biden, I believe you said that your health care plan would not cover undocumented immigrants. Could you explain your position?
I'm sorry, beg your pardon.
I believe at the show of hands, you did not raise your hand. Did you raise your hand?
No, I did.
Okay, sorry. So you said that they would be covered under your plan, which is different than Obamacare.
Yes, but here's the
thing. Can you
thing.
explain that change?
Yes, you cannot let, as the mayor said, you cannot let people who are sick, no matter where they come from, no matter what their status, go uncovered. You can't do that.
Can you let them go unfed, unclothed, unhoused, without a job? What can you let people who the fucking world do?
Three things. Number one, they, in fact, contribute to the well-being of the country, but they also, for example, they've increased the lifespan of Social Security because they have a job, they're paying a Social Security tax. That's what they're doing. It's increased the lifespan. They would do the same thing in terms of reducing the overall cost of health care by them being able to be treated and not wait till they're in extremis. The other thing is, folks, look, we can deal with these insurance companies. We can deal with the insurance companies.
I'm shocked that it seems that the Democrats are going to be running on a platform of what we can do for people who are not citizens. And I think that's a weird strategy.
Doctors to
Well,
prescribe.
it's only a weird strategy if those people don't vote.
By making sure everyone who is on Medicare, that the government should be able to negotiate the price for whatever the drug costs are. We can do this by making sure that we're in a position that we, in fact, allow people.
And, all the white liberals, the rich white liberals.
Hold off a minute. We need to take a short break here. We got a lot more we need to talk to all of you about, so stick with us. We're just getting started. We'll be back with more from Miami right now.
Thank you very much. Carrie,
oh, wait. We have someone in the chat who disagrees with us, which is cool and interesting. Luca says, I don't see why nationalized healthcare is in any way a bad idea.
Okay.
What would you say?
Don't see it.
Okay.
I mean,
well, here's what I would say, because I used to think it wasn't a bad idea. As recently as the last presidential election, I thought it wasn't a bad idea. But I think now I see it differently in terms of, I used to think it was the government's job to provide all sorts of things to citizens that now I don't believe it's their job to do. So taxing us to provide healthcare is not a right. It's not like an inalienable right, like freedom to speak.
Right. Yeah. Rights can only be negatives. They can't force other people to do, like, rights can't cause obligation on other people. So there is no, like, technically you can't have any right that places a positive obligation on someone else. You can have a right that places a negative obligation, like I have a right for you to not murder me, but like you can just be unconscious and be doing nothing and you're not violating my rights. But if doing nothing violates my rights, then it's not a right. So healthcare, if I do nothing, i.e. I don't pay for it or I don't treat you, then I would be violating your right if you had a right to healthcare. So it's a shit concept. It's anti-intellectual concept, but that doesn't matter. They don't care about that. From a practice, I mean, so yeah, you're pointing a gun at someone, stealing someone's money to pay someone else, blah, blah, blah. So there's the moral argument. From a practical perspective, though, the free market works best, right? There's a reason why people from around the world, when they have really severe medical conditions, they come here, even if they're from a country that has socialized healthcare. What happens originally, as soon as you socialize it, you still have some remnants of the old system, so it's not that bad. But over time, it gets really bad. You destroy innovation, you destroy the profit motive, which is what creates a relationship with a customer where you care about your service. I'll lecture later.
Last month, more than 130,000 migrants were apprehended at the southern border. Many of them are being detained, including small children in private detention.
Kids in cages.
Florida and throughout our country. Also, the candidates on this stage say the conditions at these facilities are abhorrent. On January 20th, 2021, if you are president, what specifically would you do with the thousands of people who try to reach the United States every day and want a better life through asylum?
Immediately on January 20th of 2021, I will, first of all, we cannot forget our DACA recipients, and so I'm going to start there. I will immediately, by executive action, reinstate DACA status and DACA protection to those young people. I will further extend protection for deferral of deportation for their parents and for veterans who we have so many who are undocumented.
But what is her plan to end DACA? Because even Obama said it was a temporary solution. It was not meant to be permanent. DACA was not meant to be permanent.
A meaningful process for reviewing the cases for asylum. I will release children from cages. I will get rid of
She literally said kids in cages, guys, if you're playing bingo.
Thank you, Carrie. I was
this
waiting
microphone that the President of the United States holds in her hand is used in a way that is about reflecting the values of our country and not about locking children up, separating them from their parents. And I have to just say that we have to think about this issue in terms of real people. A mother who pays a coyote to transport her child through their country of origin, through the entire country of Mexico, facing unknown peril to come here. Why would that mother do that? I will tell you.
Socialism?
Because she has decided for that child to remain where they are is worse. But what
because we provide services to non-citizens here?
Like, that is not
why is it worse?
America
Why don't you
and
ask
our
the question
values,
why
and
it's
it's
worse?
got to end.
Governor Hickenlooper.
I mean, that's a great question, though, Kamala. Why would people risk their kids' lives to cross illegally? Because of the stuff we're offering.
You
and this is where they would stop.
These children?
let me get to you in just a second.
I'm sorry.
Governor, day one, thousands of men, women, and children cross the border asking for asylum for a better life. What do you do? Day one, hour one.
Well, certainly the images we've seen this week just compound the emotional impact that the world is judging us by. If you'd ever told me any time in my life that this country would sanction federal agents to take children from the arms of their parents, put them in cages, actually put them up for adoption, in Colorado we call that kidnapping, I would have told you.
Or divorce court.
I would have told you it was unbelievable. And the first thing we have to do is recognize the humanitarian crisis on the border for what it is. We make sure that there are the sufficient facilities in place so that women and children are not separated from their families, the children are with their families. We have to make sure that ICE is completely reformed and they begin looking at their job in a way where they're addressing the whole needs of the people.
He didn't say abolish ICE, right?
No. Make sure ultimately that we provide not just shelter, but food, clothing, and access.
So in the chat, Mr. brings up that Obama put, quote, kids in cages. Yeah, those photos that have circulated are from 2014. They're from Obama's presidency.
Realize that. If you forcibly take a child from their parents' arms, you're kidnapping them. And if you take a lot of children and you put them in a detainment center, thus inflicting chronic trauma upon them, that's called child abuse. This is collective child abuse. And when this is crime, both of those things are crime. And if your government does it, that doesn't make it less of a crime. These are state-sponsored
Let's universalize that principle. What about when the government comes in at you and takes your money? Does that make it less of a crime?
Is not only attack these children, not only demonize these immigrants.
You know, when you commit a crime in the U.S. and you go to jail, you get separated from your kids. I mean, it's like
this is extremely
you're
important.
acting as if this doesn't happen, that there aren't consequences for actions that
on this stage. But we're going to talk about what to do about healthcare. Well, where have you been, guys? Because if it's not just a matter of a plan, and I haven't heard anybody on this stage who has talked about American foreign policy in Latin America and how we might have, in the last few decades, contributed to something big more.
Senator Gillibrand, what would you do as president with a reality?
Well, one of the worst things about President Trump that he's done to this country the moral fabric of who we are. When he started separating children at the border from their parents, the fact that 7 children have died.
That was already happening before him.
Children have been separated from their parents, and they have no plan.
I'm sorry, it's just making me angry.
First, I would fight for comprehensive immigration reform with a pathway to citizenship. Second, I would reform how we treat asylum seekers at the border. I would have a community-based treatment center where you're doing it within the communities, where asylum seekers are given lawyers, where there's real immigration judges, not employees of the Attorney General, but appointed for life, and have a community-based system. I would fund border security, but the worst thing President Trump has done is he's diverted the funds away from cross-border terrorism, cross-border human trafficking, drug trafficking, and gun trafficking, and he's given that money to the for-profit prisons. I would not be spending money in for-profit prisons to lock up children and asylum seekers.
We had a very spirited debate on
these
this
guys,
stage.
here's the reason I'm so angry. It's because I actually think all of this rests in their hands. They haven't passed any laws to reform immigration policy. They're not doing anything about it.
Documentation. Can we keep our hands up so we could see them?
And let's remember, that's not just a theoretical exercise. That criminalization, that is the basis for family separation. You do away with that, it's no longer possible. Of course, it wouldn't be possible anyway in my presidency because it is dead wrong. We got to talk about one other thing because
they just all raised their hands saying they want to decriminalize
the language of
illegal immigration.
Now, our party doesn't talk about that as much, largely for a very good reason, which was we are committed to the separation of church and state, and we stand for people of any religion and people of no religion. But we should call out hypocrisy when we see it. And for a party that associates itself with Christianity, to say that it is okay to suggest that God would smile on the division of families at the hands of federal agents.
Who is suggesting that? That is a straw man.
Has lost all claim to ever use religious language again.
Vice President.
This makes me so angry. This is what I think of as taking God's name in vain. He's putting words in the mouth of God that God has not said.
Criminalize
trying to speak for God.
The first thing I would do is unite families. I'd surge immediately billions of dollars worth of help to the region immediately. Look, I talk about foreign policy.
The region?
I'm the guy.
It's a well thought out plan. Billions of dollars to the
region. At the very end of
region.
the campaign, at the very end of our term, to spend $740 million to deal with the problem. And that was to go to the root cause of why people are leaving in the first place. It was working. We saw, as you know, a net decrease in the number of children who are coming. The crisis was abated. And along came this president. He said he immediately discontinued that. We all talk about these things. I did it. 740 million. Second thing we have to do. The law now requires the reuniting of those families. We would reunite those families, period. And if not, we put those children in a circumstance where they were safe until we could find their parents. And lastly, the idea that he's in court with his Justice Department saying children in cages do not need a bed, do not need a blanket, do not need a toothbrush.
That is that wanted them to not have beds.
The Obama-Biden administration was the Obama-Biden administration deported more than 3 million Americans. My question to you
look at that.
is living in the United States of America without documents, and that is his only offense. Should that person be deported?
No.
Depending if they committed a major crime, they should be deported. And the president was left in his, President Obama, I think, did a heck of a job. To compare him to what this guy's doing is absolutely, I find, close to immoral. But the fact is that
it's immoral.
Look, we should not be locking people
them.
up. We should be making sure we change the
How
circumstance as we did, why they would leave in the first place. And those who come seeking asylum, we should immediately have the capacity to absorb them, keep them safe until they can be heard.
A 15-second, if you could, if you wish to answer. Should someone who is here without documents, and that is his only offense, should that person be deported?
That person should not be the focus of deportation. We should fundamentally change the way we deal with them.
So they are for open borders, like they're finally.
No, he said it shouldn't be the focus of deportation.
But they're finally getting close to admitting open borders, right?
And we rescind every damn thing on this issue that Trump has done. Number two, picking up on the point that Joe made, we got to look at the root causes. And you have a situation where Honduras, among other things, is a failing state. Massive corruption. You got gangs who are telling families that if a 10-year-old does not join that gang, that family is going to be killed. What we have got to do on day one is invite the presidents and the leadership of Central America and Mexico together. This is a hemispheric problem that we have got to address.
Congressman Swalwell, what do you do?
Day one?
No. If someone is here without documents, and that is their only offense,
does anyone know
is that person to be deported?
No. That person can be a part of this great American experience. That person can contribute. My congressional district is one of the most diverse in America, and we see the benefits when people contribute and they become a part of the community and they're not in the shadow economy. Day one for me, families are reunited. This president, though, for immigrants, there's nothing he will not do to separate a family, cage a child, or erase.
They said cages like 5 times tonight.
No, if this was all cages and healthcare,
do in the courts, and that I will not do as president to reverse that and to make sure that families always belong together.
Senator Harris.
Well, thank you. I will say, no, absolutely not. They should not be deported. And I actually, this was one of the very few issues with which I disagreed with the administration, with whom I otherwise had a great relationship and a great deal of respect. But on the secure communities issue, I was Attorney General of California. I led the second largest Department of Justice in the United States, second only to the United States Department of Justice in a state of 40 million people. And on this issue, I disagreed with my president because the policy was to allow deportation of people who, by ICE's own definition, were non-criminals. So as Attorney General and the Chief Law Officer of the state of California, I issued a directive to the sheriffs of my state that they did not have to comply with detainers and instead should make decisions based on the best interest of public safety of their community. Because what I saw, and I was tracking it every day, I was tracking it and saw that parents, people who had not committed a crime, even by ICE's own definition, were being deported. But I have to add a point here. The problem with this kind of policy, and I know it as a prosecutor, I want a rape victim to be able to run in the middle of the street and wave down a police officer and report the crime against her. I want anybody who has been the victim of any real crime to be able to do that and not be afraid.
What is real crime versus what? Fake crime?
Well, real crimes are rapes that are done by non-Americans.
What did you say? It's hard to hear.
I said real crimes are rapes that are committed by
non-Muslims. On this stage, and the greatest geopolitical threat
I'll
facing
speak up.
the U.S.
Sorry, I know there's
Thank you. It's a little mumbly.
U.S. businesses say China steals our intellectual property, and party leaders on both sides accuse China of manipulating their currency to keep the cost of goods artificially low. I'll ask this to Senator Bennett to start off with. How would you stand up to China?
I think that, first of all, the biggest threat to our national security right now is Russia, not China. And second,
Russia.
On China, we've got competition
Russia, guys.
They've done with our election. In
Russia.
I think the president's been right to push back on China, but has done it in completely the wrong way.
Okay, if Joe Biden says he'll cure cancer, I have bingo.
We all have a shared interest.
I just need Muslim ban or Islamophobia.
I think we can do that. I'd like to answer the other question before this as well.
You have the time.
When I see these kids at the border, I see my mom because I know she sees herself, because she was separated from her parents for years during the Holocaust in Poland. And for Donald Trump to be doing what he's doing to children and their families at the borders, I say this as somebody who wrote the immigration bill in 2013 that created a pathway to citizenship for 11 million people in this country, that had the most progressive DREAM Act that's ever been conceived, much less passed. It got 68 votes in the Senate, that had $46 billion of border security in it, that was sophisticated 21st century border security, not a medieval wall. And the president has turned the border of the United States into a symbol of nativist hostility that the whole world is looking at, when what we should be represented by is the Statue of Liberty, which has brought my parents.
Walls are medieval.
Mr. Yang, let me bring you in on this, on the issue of China.
They were mostly to keep Muslims
concerns about technology and taking jobs. Are you worried about China? And if so, how would you stand up against it?
Well, I just want to agree that I think Russia is our greatest geopolitical threat, because they've been hacking our democracy successfully. They've been laughing their asses off about
What about Google hacking our democracy?
Before we start worrying about other threats.
What about
China,
giving away money as hacking our democracy?
They do pirate our intellectual property. It's a massive problem. But the tariffs and the trade war are just punishing businesses and producers and workers on both sides. I met with a farmer in Iowa who said he spent 6 years building up a buying relationship in China that's now disappeared and gone forever. And the beneficiaries have not been American workers or people in China. It's been Southeast Asia and other producers that have then stepped into the void. So we need to crack down on Chinese malfeasance in the trade relationship, but the tariffs and the trade war are the wrong way to go.
All right, Mayor Buttigieg, how would you stand up against China?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we've got to recognize that the China challenge really is a serious one. This is not something to dismiss or wave away. And if you look at what China is doing, they're using technology for the perfection of dictatorship. But their fundamental economic model isn't going to change because of some tariffs. I live in the industrial Midwest. Folks who aren't in the shadow of a factory are somewhere near a soy field where I live. And manufacturers, and especially soy farmers, are hurting. Tariffs are taxes. And Americans are going to pay on average $800 more a year because of these tariffs. Meanwhile, China is investing so that they could soon be able to run circles around us in artificial intelligence. And this president is fixated on the China relationship as if all that mattered was the export balance on dishwashers. We've got a much bigger issue on our hands. But at a moment when their authoritarian model is being held up as an alternative to ours because ours looks so chaotic, compared to theirs right now because of our internal
John in
division.
chat says,
Biggest thing
vote
we've
for
got
me
to
and I'll
do
learn to
is
speak
invest
Chinese.
in our own domestic competitiveness. If we disinvest in our own infrastructure, education, we are never going to be able to compete. And if we really want to be an alternative,
Does he kind of have like an Eddie Munster
actually have to
haircut?
demonstrate that we care about democratic values at home and around
I
the
think
world.
it's more Eddie Haskell.
Here, candidates, when we come back, the questioning continues with our colleagues, Chuck Todd, Rachel
I don't
Maddow
think
will
he
be
did
here.
it.
Much more.
Honestly, though, if I was going to start a business somewhere, like a startup, I don't know, Shenzhen's better than Silicon Valley. I mean, until you get big enough that the Chinese government pays attention to you, but because we've fucked ourselves so much.
Has your mood improved?
Has my mood improved?
Yeah.
It will improve if someone says Muslim ban. I'm trying to get them to do that.
Well, because I was having last night. I feel like I was a little more fun. Tonight I'm getting angry.
Tonight's also kind of boring though, because it's just like we talked about healthcare forever, and then we talked about immigration forever.
Just wait till they get to the women and trans stuff when we come back from break.
Yeah, that'll be fun. I don't know, Carrie, what do you think about this?
I think that tonight is probably more frustrating than last night, because last night my takeaway was that I was surprised that they weren't as hardcore SJW as I anticipated. And tonight, wow, they're really, I mean, I think even the bingo, how fast we were checking things off, that kind of goes to the point that they were much more hardline SJW tonight.
Yeah. Yeah. Tonight was more chaotic, though. They were also talking over each other a lot more. There was a lot more discombobulation than last night.
They're all trying to be the big dog to get the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except for Marianne, what's her name?
Yeah. But I actually, out of all the comments, I think I like Marianne's the best. I kind of like her already, though, so.
Oh, she's vile, though.
I don't know.
She exploits your poor parental connections. I mean, she's like a charlatan guru person. They're all inherently evil. I know you don't use the word to describe people, but
John says he thinks Biden is doing well. Yeah, I do too. I think Biden's doing pretty well.
He's doing okay. He's doing okay. I think Kamala, though, I think a lot of people who weren't sure about Kamala, she's making herself sound like a contender.
She's certainly showing that she can be a bit alpha, for sure.
He's definitely alpha. And Biden is coming across, I think he's trying to come across as the fatherly, like grandpa, the one who knows better than everyone else and who's been there and like, yes, I'm progressive, but this is the way we have to go about doing things. It's kind of working. Bernie's just Bernie.
I think when was it Buttigieg who said, how do you say his name? Buddha. Anyway, the one who said, I'm as the youngest person on stage. I wish that Bernie or Biden, whichever one's older, had been like, excuse me, young man, as the oldest person. Respect your elders.
Yeah.
John says,
well, it's a farce. I'm serious that I want asylum. I want asylum from these people. I mean that. There's the premise here. So I think the reason we have all these candidates, Carrie, is they're all in the echo chamber. So they all think they have a shot at beating Trump because all these leftists are like, well, obviously everyone hates Trump. So this is the year to run because anyone can beat him. So they're all running. But I think they're underestimating if this is how they're going to perform.
Yeah, it's delusional because I know, okay, now I may be in my own echo chamber, but hear me out. I know a ton more people who did not vote for Trump in 2016 who plan to vote for him in 2020.
Yeah.
And I don't know anybody going the opposite way who voted for him and is not going to.
There's probably a couple people, but I think you're right in general. All right, here we go.
Going to bring in more members of our team.
You're going to bring in Rachel Maddow now?
Chuck Todd and Rachel Maddow.
Well, Rachel, I had a dream that we've done this before. No, didn't happen. Definitely first time. Thank you, Lester, Savannah, and Jose. Let's quickly recap the rules one more time.
All of this seems so performative and so fake to me. Like, it's like watching propaganda happen.
Breakdown for each side was selected at random. Candidates will have 60 seconds to answer.
That's why we're
the right
watching it and
questions,
drinking and
30
playing bingo.
seconds for follow-up if necessary. Because of this large field,
But I used to be the person who
will be able to comment on
lived in clown world, and like I believe this was all, I don't know.
Yeah, you thought this was like real and really important, and stuff was being decided and discussed. Real issues are being discussed right now. Smart people are talking.
In the last 5 years, civil rights activists in our country have led a national debate over race and the criminal justice system. Your community of South Bend, Indiana, has recently been in uproar over an officer-involved shooting. The police force in South Bend is now 6%
Not
black
yet.
in a city that is 26% black. Why has that not improved over your 2 terms
Yes.
as mayor?
Yes.
Because I couldn't get it done.
Police and black men.
In anguish right now because of an officer-involved shooting. A black man,
There we
Eric
go. Okay.
Logan, killed
Black
by
man.
Someone's
I'm
got to
not allowed
have
to take sides
bingo.
until the investigation comes back. The officer said he was attacked with a knife, but he didn't have his body camera on. It's a mess, and we're hurting. And I could walk you through all of the things that we have done as a community, all of the steps that we took from bias training to de-escalation, but it didn't save the life of Eric Logan. And when I look into his mother's eyes, I have to face the fact that nothing that I say will bring him back. This is an issue that is facing our community and so many communities around the country. And until we move policing out from the shadow of systemic racism, whatever this particular incident teaches us, we will be left with the bigger problem of the fact that there's a wall of mistrust put up one racist act at a time, not just from what's happened in the past, but from what's happening around the country in the present. It threatens the well-being of every community. And I am determined to bring about a day when a white person driving a vehicle and a black person driving a vehicle, when they see a police officer approaching, feels the exact same thing, a feeling not of fear, but of safety. I am determined to bring that day about.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
If I could ask one question, just because I think,
Governor, I'll give you 30 seconds.
I think that the question they're asking in South Bend, I think in cities across the country, is why has it taken so long? We had a shooting when I first became mayor 10 years before Ferguson. And the
I wish we had de Blasio on tonight so he could say, I have a black son.
We diversified the police force in 2 years. We actually did de-escalation training. I think the real question that America should be asking is why 5 years after Ferguson, every city doesn't have this level of police accountability.
Governor Hickenlooper, thank you.
I've got to respond to that. Look, we've taken so many steps toward police accountability that the FOP just denounced me for too much accountability. We're obviously not there yet. And I accept responsibility for that because I'm in charge.
Policy, you should fire the chief.
So under Indiana law, this will be investigated and there will be accountability for the officer involved.
But you're the mayor, you should fire the chief if that's the policy and someone died.
All of these issues are extremely important, but there are
Let's argue over
there are
how to run
symptoms,
his fucking
and the
city that
underlying
no one
cause
gives a
has
shit
to
about.
do with deep realms of racial injustice, both in our criminal justice system and in our economic system. And the Democratic Party should be on the side of reparations.
Reparations! Bingo!
Wait, what's your bingo? Let's verify.
Thank you. Thank you, Marianne. I have bingo. Why is it you and me winning bingo? That seems unfair.
Wait, what's your bingo? We have to verify. What are your blocks?
Millionaires or billionaires, reparations, speaks in Spanish, police and black men, and healthcare is right.
Woohoo!
30 seconds. We're going to come back to you on this again in just a moment. Go for 30 seconds.
Okay. So on the issue of race, I couldn't agree more. that this is an issue that is still not being talked about truthfully and honestly. There is not a Black man I know, be he a relative, a friend, or a coworker, who has not been the subject of some form of profiling or discrimination. Growing up, my sister and I had to deal with the neighbor who told us her parents couldn't play with us because we were Black. And I will say also that in this campaign, we've also heard, and I'm going to now direct this at Vice President
I think we should start over, and I don't think me winning or Kerry winning should count. So people in the chat should still play.
We can't really start over unless you have other cards already printed. But why don't we just keep playing and see whoever gets bingo?
I also believe,
That's what I mean.
and it's personal, and I was actually very
sorry, I
hurtful
wasn't answering the question. No,
to
keep
hear
playing.
you
Keep playing.
talk about the reputations of two United States senators who built their reputations and career on the segregation of race in this country. And it was not only that, but you also worked with them to oppose busing.
She's going after Biden. See, she knows. She's like,
there was a little girl
she's
in
a contender.
California
She's got to take Biden down, and she knows it.
second class to integrate her public schools. And she was bused to school every day.
He's basically saying, Biden, you're racist.
So I will tell you that
and she can make up anything
subject,
she wants about her childhood and all of her Black friends, and no one can challenge her.
It cannot be an intellectual debate among Democrats.
Yeah.
We have to take it
because
seriously.
You can't question lived experience.
As Attorney General of California, I was very proud to put in place a requirement that all my special agents would wear body cameras and keep those cameras on.
Thank you. Vice President Biden, you have been invoked. We are going to give you a chance to respond. Vice President Biden.
See? I'm telling you.
What's he going to say?
It's a mischaracterization of my position across the board. I did not praise racist. That is not true. Number one. Number two, if we want to have this campaign litigated on who supports civil rights and whether I did or not, I'm happy to do that. I was a public defender. I didn't become a prosecutor. I came out and I left a good law firm to become a public defender when in fact, my city was in flames because of the assassination of Dr. King. Number one. Number two, as the Vice President of the United States, I work with a man who, in fact, we worked very hard to see to it we dealt with these issues in a major, major way. The fact is that in terms of busing, you would have been able to go to school the same exact way because it was a local decision made by your city council. That's fine. That's one of the things I argued for, that we should be breaking down these lines. But so the bottom line here is, look, everything I've done in my career, I ran because of civil rights. I continue to think we have to make fundamental changes in civil rights. And those civil rights, by the way, include not just only African Americans, but the LGBT community.
But Vice President Biden, do you agree today that you were wrong to oppose busing in America?
No,
do you agree?
I did not. No. Busing in America. What I oppose is busing ordered by the Department of Education. That's what I oppose.
Well,
I did not oppose
failure of states to integrate public schools.
Yeah, we're talking about like how many years ago?
Berkeley, California, public schools almost 2 decades after Brown v. Board of Education.
Because your city council made that decision. It was a local decision.
That's where the federal government must step in. That's why we have the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act.
Oh my gosh, Carter, I'm afraid you're right.
That's why we need to pass the ERA, because there are moments.
Because he's still got a little bit of the old school, like federal government can't do everything, and she's like, no. I will be the dictator of everyone.
And she can play all the cards, except the trans and disabled.
She knows
the Voting Rights Act for 25 years. We got to the place where we got 98 out of 98 votes in the United States Senate doing it. I've also argued very strongly that we, in fact, deal with the notion of denying people access to the ballot box. I agree that everybody, once they, in fact, they should. Anyway, my time's up. I'm sorry.
I was hoping he would end it with, and I was that little Black girl.
I'm going to go to you on this. You said on the day you launched your campaign that voters should focus on what people stand for, not a candidate's race or age or sexual orientation. Many Democrats are very excited by the diversity of this field.
Honestly,
on
I
this
think
stage and on last night's stage.
Could give Trump a run for his money too.
That diversity brings to this contest and to these issues.
Other people could.
Are you telling Democratic voters
this is a full SJW question?
Matter when they make this decision?
Diversity. Are you saying diversity shouldn't matter?
Unlike the Republican Party, We encourage diversity. We believe in diversity.
Bullshit.
That's what America is about. But in addition
that's
to
what America's
diversity,
about.
in terms of having more women, more people from the LGBT community, we also have to do something else. And that is we have to ask ourselves a simple question. And that how come today the worker in the middle of our economy is making no more money than he or she made 45 years ago, and that in the last 30 years, the top 1% has seen a $21 trillion increase in their wealth. We need a party that is diverse, but we need a party that has the guts to stand up to the powerful special interests who have so much power over the economic and political life of this country.
Senator Gillibrand, I want to give you 30 seconds on this.
Well, first of all, where Bernie left off, we've heard a lot of good ideas on this stage tonight, and a lot of plans. But the truth is, until you go to the root of the corruption, the money in politics, the fact that Washington is run by the special interests, you are never going to solve any of these problems. I have the most comprehensive approach that experts agree is the most transformative plan to actually take on political corruption, to get money out of politics through publicly funded elections, to have clean elections. If we do that and get money out of politics, we can guarantee health care is a right, not a privilege. We can deal with institutional racism. We can take on income inequality, 67. And we can take on the corporate corruption that runs Washington.
The first constitutional amendment to do that was introduced by me when I was a young senator.
Thank you, Vice President. We want to shift topics here. Senator Bennett, the next question is for you. On the issue of partisan gridlock, President Obama promised in 2012 that after his reelection, Republicans would want to work with Democrats. Fever would break. That did not happen. Now, Vice President Biden is saying the same thing, that if he is elected in 2020, both parties will want to work together. Should voters believe that somehow if there's a Democratic president in 2021, that gridlock is going to magically disappear?
Gridlock will not magically disappear as long as Mitch McConnell is there first.
Although that's a good reason to vote.
That's why it is so important for us to win not just the presidency, to have somebody.
I can't believe no one has said reproductive justice yet.
But to win the Senate as well.
Yeah.
And that's why we have to propose policies.
I also want to see a bar fight between Biden and
Medicare Act, so that we can build a broad
Kamala
coalition
wants
of
to
Americans
see
to
a fight
overcome
between Biden and
broken Washington, D.C. I agree with what Senator Gillibrand was saying. I share a lot of her views. We need to end gerrymandering in Washington. We need to end political gerrymandering in Washington. The court today said they couldn't do anything about it. We need to overturn Citizens United. The court was the one that gave us Citizens United. And the attack on voting rights in Shelby versus Holder is something we need to deal with. All of those things has happened since Vice President Biden was in the Senate. And we face structural problems that we have to overcome with a broad coalition. It's the only way we can do it. We need to root out the corruption in Washington, expand people's right to get
It is
to
rich
polls,
that the
and I think
Dems are wanting to end gerrymandering.
30 seconds. It does sound as if you haven't seen what's been happening in the United States Senate over the last 12 years. It didn't happen. Why?
I have seen what happened just since we were vice president. We needed 3 votes to pass an $800 billion recovery act that kept us from going into depression. I got 3 votes changed. We needed to be able to keep the government from shutting down and going bankrupt. I got Mitch McConnell to raise taxes $600 billion by raising the top rate. And as recently as after President got elected, I was able to put together a coalition of the Cures Act that billions of dollars go into cancer research. Bipartisan, but sometimes you can't do that. Sometimes
cancer
you have to
research.
go out and beat them. I went
know
into
it's not
20
pure
states,
cancer, but it's
over
close.
60 candidates, and guess what? We
But-
beat them. We won back the Senate.
Thank you.
Chuck,
Thank you.
the problem with what the Vice
30
President...
Do I get to count that?
No.
Sometimes you do have to beat him, but the deal that he talked about with Mitch McConnell was a complete
No one cares about your
victory for the
wonkish
Tea Party.
policy,
It
like
extended the Bush tax
procedural
cuts
arguments.
permanently. The Democratic Party had been running against that for 10 years. We
Yes, the
lost that
tsunami was
economic
clearly his
argument
fault,
because that deal extended almost all those Bush tax cuts permanently and put in place the mindless cuts that we still are dealing with today that are called the sequester. That was a great deal for Mitch McConnell. It was a terrible deal for America.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senator Bennett.
The reason why the Trump tax cut had to be passed is because they had to pay back their donors. You heard it. They actually said those words. So the corruption in Washington is real. And it is something that makes every one of the plans we've heard about over the last several months impossible. And I have the most comprehensive approach to do it with clean elections, publicly funded elections. So we restore the power of our democracy into the hands of the voters, not into the Koch brothers. We were talking about issues. Imagine we're in Florida. Imagine the Parkland kids having as much power in our democracy as the Koch brothers or the NRA. Imagine
or Facebook or Google or George Soros or any of the number of Wall Street billionaires that donate to the Democrats or Eric Schmidt.
Because nothing else is possible, whether it's education or
Yeah,
healthcare.
she is kind of saying drain the swamp.
Thank you very much. Sanders, I'd like to put a different question to you. Roe versus Wade has been the law of the land since 1973. Now that there is a conservative majority on the Supreme Court, several Republican-controlled states have passed laws to severely restrict or even ban abortion. One of those laws could very well make it to the Supreme Court during your presidency, if you're elected president. What is your plan if Roe is struck down in the court while you're president?
Well,
women's right to choose. Women's right to choose.
Oh, yeah.
That a woman's right to control her own body is a constitutional right, that government and politicians should not infringe on that right.
Someone's
We
got to
will
have
do
bingo.
everything we can
We just hit
to
women's right to
defend
choose,
our
guys.
Roe versus Wade. Second of all, let me make a promise here. You ask about litmus test. My litmus test is I will never appoint. Nominate any justice.
If Biden says he'll cure cancer, or if somebody talks about trans people,
he or she will defend.
I'll have bingo.
Wait. Third of all, I do not believe in packing the court. We got a terrible 5-4 majority conservative court right now. But I do believe that constitutionally we have the power to rotate judges to other courts. And that brings in new blood into the Supreme Court and a majority, I hope, that will understand that a woman has the right to control her own body and that corporations cannot run the United States of America.
I'm going to give you 10 additional seconds because the question is, what if the court has already overturned Roe and Roe is gone? All of the things you just described would be to try to preserve Roe.
Roe's
If
actually
Roe
just
is
about
gone,
whether
what
the
could you
states
do as
can
president
make
to preserve abortion rights?
Well, first of all, let me tell you this. Didn't come up here, but let's face this. Medicare for all guarantees every woman in this country the right to have an abortion if she wants it.
Thank you, Senator.
Can I just address this for a second? And I want to talk directly to America's women and to the men who love them.
She's all about
Women's reproductive rights are under assault by President Trump and the Republican Party. 30 states are trying to overturn Roe v. Wade right now. And it is mind-boggling to me that we are debating this on this stage in 2019 among Democrats, whether women should have access to reproductive rights. I think we need to stop.
Are they debating it?
All saying the same fucking thing.
Yeah, you're all
You're
agreeing with each other.
It goes to the corruption in the deal making.
I was just saying the same thing. They're not debating it. They're all agreeing. What is she talking about? None of them has an interesting or independent
compromises
thought.
have been made on our backs. That's how we got to Hyde. That's how the Hyde Amendment was created, a compromise by leaders of both parties. Then we have the ACA. During the ACA negotiations,
Right, even if you're
I had to fight like heck
pro-abortion,
with other women to make sure that
paying
contraception
for it
wasn't
is
sold down
the
the
government
river
paying for it
or
is
abortion
different.
services.
And they all, I think they all want the government to pay for it also.
What we need to know is, imagine
They're not
this
even
one
arguing
question.
that.
When we beat President Trump and Mitch McConnell walks into the Oval Office, God forbid, to do negotiations, who do you want when that door closes to be sitting behind that desk to fight for women's rights? I have been the fiercest advocate for women's reproductive freedom.
Well, definitely. I guess we need a woman.
Who's like that person at the PTA meeting that you just hope doesn't show up?
No matter what.
Fucking annoying bitch.
We're moving to climate, guys. Senator Harris, I'm addressing you first on this. You live in a state that has been hit by drought, wildfires, flooding.
Wait.
Climate change.
Climate change, guys. Climate change.
Oh, we've also been hit by socialism.
Obviously, the state as
Climate
well.
change.
Last night, voters heard many of the candidates weigh in on their proposals. Explain specifically what yours is.
Well, first of all, I don't even call it climate change. It's the climate crisis. It represents an existential threat to And the fact that we have a president of the United States who has embraced science fiction
This
over
is, I love this. This is like reproductive justice. We're learning all the new terms.
Honestly, when someone, I mean, you can argue about climate change, but when someone says that, it sounds like they're saying the aliens are going to invade us tomorrow. It's an existential threat.
And on this issue,
well, remember Beto yesterday said it is the most important
we must do
existential
to
threat.
confront what is immediate and before us right now. That is why I support a Green New Deal. It is why I believe on day one, and as president, will re-enter us in the Paris Agreement, because we have to take these issues seriously. And frankly, we have a president of the United States. We talked about, you asked before, what is national security threat to the United States?
John in chat says, wow, California sometimes has droughts and fires. How long has this been happening?
It's brand new, John. It just happened since Trump's been in office, and they're all his fault.
An existential threat. He denies the science. You want to talk about North Korea, real threat in terms of nuclear arsenal, but what does he do? He embraces Kim Jong-un, a dictator for the sake of a photo op. Putin, you want to talk about
Senator
Russia?
Harris, we're going to
he takes the word of the Russian president over the word of the American intelligence community when it comes to a threat to our democracy and our election.
Thank you, Senator Harris.
Yeah, the new Green Deal, Chris. I think that's what she means. The Green New Deal. Yeah.
Hashtag time's up.
ALC as VP. Here we come.
Elected president in your first term, how is this going to help farmers impacted by climate change in the Midwest?
Well, the reality is we need to begin adapting right away, but we also can't
reality
skip the
is,
beat on
if
preventing
there were
climate
climate change
change
in the
from
Midwest,
getting
it would
even
help
worse.
farmers.
That's why we need.
How did she get from climate change?
Land, north, farther north,
to
and
do
longer
a carbon
grown.
tax and dividend. But I would propose.
Notice though, how did she get from climate change to some of her other talking points about Kim Jong-un and Putin? It was like they asked you a specific question and then you veered off.
Parts of California.
Yeah, well, because everything's Trump's fault. He, isn't in the Paris Agreement, blah, blah, blah. He doesn't care.
Operations center of our city twice in less than 2 years. First time was a 1,000-year flood, and the next time was a 500-year flood. This is not just happening on the Arctic ice caps. This is happening in the middle of the country, and we've got to be dramatically more aggressive moving forward. Now, here's what very few people talk about. First of all, rural
Hey, my friend Gus is here.
You're going to hear a lot of her coming up.
With the right kind of soil management and other kind of investments, rural America could be a huge part of how we get this done. And secondly, we got to look to the leadership of local communities. Those networks of mayors and cities from around the world who have come together, not even waiting for our national governments to catch up. We should have a Pittsburgh summit where we bring them together as well as rejoining the Paris.
Thank you, Mayor Buttigieg.
So I want to bring Governor Hickenlooper into this for a moment. Governor, you
So
have
my
companies should be a part of
my friend Gus just joined, and I just wanted to say hi to him because he texted me and said, I can't watch this anymore. I seriously feel sick. And I was like, well, watch with us. So here's what you missed, Gus. We played bingo, Carter won. We're having a bit of fun. We're still a little angry.
12 years of actually, suffering irreversible damage. But guaranteeing everybody a government job is not going to get us there. So socialism, and in that sense, is not the solution. We have to look at what really will make a difference. In Colorado, we're closing a couple of coal plants, replacing them with wind, solar, and batteries, and the monthly bills go down. We're building a network for electric vehicles. We are working with the oil and gas industry, and we've created the first methane regulations in the country. Methane is 25 times worse than CO2. And then we've got to get to that last part. I mean, the heavy industry, we haven't seen the plans yet. If you look at the real problem, CO2,
Carter,
the worst polluters.
Are you falling asleep?
Is the United States, and then it's concrete and it's exhalation.
This is the problem with a huge government that wants to micromanage every fucking thing. It's like sitting in a super boring technical meeting that's not even in your area of expertise. It's like the soil science should be blah blah blah, and we should pass this and do that. He knows nothing about actual energy.
Democrats are arguing robustly among themselves.
He's just saying shit.
What's the best way to tackle climate change? But if we're honest, many Republicans, including the president,
talking about things they don't actually know anything about.
A serious problem.
You can't possibly know anything about. You can't know enough about all these things. No one can.
If you have
it's just talking points and bullshit.
The answer is yes. Number one, when our administration We built the largest wind farm in the world, the largest solar energy facility in the world. We drove
Didn't you
down the
invest in
price,
Solyndra and
competitive
lose all
price
the
of
money?
both of those renewable sources. I would immediately insist that we, in fact, build 500,000 recharging stations throughout the United States of America, working with governors, mayors, and others, so that we can go to a full electric vehicle future by the year 2020, or by the year 2030. I would make sure that we invested $400 million in new science and technology to be the
Terry, they say these
exporter,
numbers
not only
like they're
of
going to impress
the
us
green
positively.
economy, but
Like, I
economy
would
that can
invest
create millions of
$400
jobs.
million.
But I would immediately join the
It's
Paris,
not impressive.
Climate
Those are
Accord.
that means
I would
I'm going
up
to
the
tax
ante
you
in that accord,
$400
which it
million.
calls for,
Actually,
because
probably
we
$8.
make up 15%
But see, when you're
of
like I used to be,
85%
I'm
of the
trying to
world
translate.
makes up the rest.
Leftists, a lot of
If we
leftists hear that,
some
and they do think of the government as like a
corral the rest of
bank,
the
and
world,
they
bring
don't
them together
connect
and
it to
get something
taxes.
done like we did in our administration.
Senator Sanders, I want to
You know
give
what,
you
John?
30
Tesla
seconds
probably
to follow
hates it
up,
because
and I'll hold you to
it'll
that.
destroy one of their
ways are
differentiators
no
against
longer
other electric
relevant.
car companies.
The scientists tell us we have
So
12 years
Tesla probably
before there
doesn't
is
want
irreparable damage
other
to
charging
this planet.
stations out there.
This is a global issue. What the president of the United States should do is not deny the reality of climate change, but tell the rest of the world that instead of spending $1.5 trillion on weapons of destruction, let us get together for the common enemy. And that is to transform the world's energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. The future
Like
of
nuclear.
the planet rests on us doing this.
Before we go, hang on.
Before we leave this topic,
Here's the solution. Pass the torch. Pass the torch
Yeah,
to a
that's a
generation
good
that's going to
point,
feel
Andrew.
the effects
Elon's
of
a
climate
charlatan in that
change.
respect.
Pass the torch to a
I love that he keeps coming back to pass the torch.
here's something you
Yeah.
all want to weigh in on. Hold one moment.
Campaign to the Republican Party.
Hold one moment.
Just trust
The
us on
fact that
this.
somebody
We're
has
gonna-
a younger body doesn't mean you don't have old ideas.
No, we
Wow.
Say, John Kennedy
She's
did
my
not say,
favorite tonight.
I have a plan to get a man to the moon, and so we're going to do it, and I think we can all work together, and maybe we can get a man on the moon. And John Kennedy said, by the end of this decade, we are going to put a man on the moon. Because John Kennedy was back in the day when politics included the
This
people.
is like a
and
high school
included
valedictorian
imagination,
speech.
And included
I'm going to
great
quote
dreams,
John F.
and
Kennedy.
included great plans.
Ms.
And
Flynn,
I
thank
have
you,
had a
Ms. Flynn.
career, not making the political plans, but I have had a career harnessing the inspiration and the motivation and the excitement of people,
Thank you, Ms.
masses of
Williamson.
people. When we know
say love
that when we say
and
we are
vibes
going to turn from a dirty
and
economy
feminine energy.
to a clean economy, we're going to have a Green New Deal. We're going to create millions of jobs. We're going to do this within the next 12 years because I'm not interested in just winning the next election. We are
Thank you, Ms.
interested in
Williamson.
our grandchildren.
All right, we got to
Then
sneak. We're
it
going to
will happen.
sneak in a break in a minute, but before we go, I'm going to go down the line here, and I'm asking you, please, for 1 or 2 words only. All right, please. Really, President Obama in his first year wanted to address both healthcare and climate, and he could only get one signature issue accomplished. It was obviously healthcare. He didn't get to do climate change. You may only get one shot, and your first issue that you're going to push, you get one shot that it may be the only thing you get passed. What is that first issue for your presidency? Eric Swalwell, you're first.
For Parkland, for Orlando, for every community affected by gun violence, ending gun violence.
I hate
Senator
this
Bennett.
man so much.
Yeah, that man is a horrible individual.
Climate change and the lack of economic mobility Bernie talks about.
Senator Joe Brown.
Passing a family bill of rights that includes a national paid leave plan, universal pre-K, affordable daycare, and making sure that women and
Thank you.
families can thrive in the workplace no matter
All
who
right.
they are.
That was-
I like that.
that was pretty
Okay,
good. Senator Harris.
And so passing a middle class and working families tax cut,
That's one.
DACA, guns.
Oh,
Everything.
I'm giving you credit for the first thing you said, the tax cut. I got you. Senator Sanders,
I
first thing.
reject the premise that there's only 1 or 2 issues out there. This
I'm not saying
country
there's 1 or
faces
2.
enormous crises.
Senator
We need
Sanders.
a political revolution. People have got to stand up and take on the special interests. We can transform this country.
Fine. Vice President Biden, your first issue, Mr. Vice President.
I think you're so underestimating what Barack Obama did. He's the first man to bring together the entire world, 196 nations.
Keith
committed
says,
The first thing I'll do
deal
is
with
get a
climate
Nobel
change.
Peace Prize
Crazy.
for bombing
I don't buy
people.
that. But
I think that Keith just said, I think the first thing we should do
make
is
sure
land
that we
a,
defeat
a man on the moon.
They're
Sanders is channeling Lenin. You're right.
President that you were going to block and tackle.
We got to fix our democracy before it's too late. Get that right. Climate, immigration, taxes, and every other issue gets better.
Mr. Yang.
I would pass a $1,000 freedom dividend for every American adult starting at age 18, which would speed us up on climate change, because if you get the boot off of people's throats, they'll focus on climate change much more clearly.
Governor Hickenlooper.
There we go.
I would do a collaborative approach to climate change.
Oh, you're right,
I
Andrew.
would pronounce
He
it
followed
well
up
before
his
the
Peace
election to
Prize
make
with
sure we
bombing.
don't re-elect the worst president in American history.
And Ms. Williamson
My
with the
first
last word.
call is to Prime Minister of New Zealand, who said that her goal is to make New Zealand the place where it's the best place in the world for a child to grow up. And I will tell her, girlfriend, you are so on, because the United States of America
Girlfriend, you are
is
so
going to be
on.
the best place in the world for a child to grow up.
You know, we're close with the short, at least it was shorter.
No, they weren't.
Responses.
Not at all.
All right. C minus.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with these candidates right after this.
Does it have to be quick? Rachel, can we take a break? How about we take a break from government for a few decades?
So I just have to say I was laughing at the moon landing thing because a while back, I think you know this, Carter. I'm going to embarrass myself. I'll tell other people. I went down a moon landing rabbit hole in which I was convinced that we didn't actually land on the moon.
Oh, yeah. You and I never, I was wanting to debunk that for you and like convince you that we actually went to the moon, but you and I never got around to that. You sent me a whole bunch of Owen Benjamin videos to watch that were very convincing, I'm sure.
I still am kind of like, I don't know for sure.
Those kind of conspiracy theories are just boring to me because they don't matter. It's like they lie about lots of stuff that we've catch them lying about that matters. So does like, who cares? Yes, Owen is crazy. Especially lately, I think. I don't know why I'm watching commercials.
Well, okay, I have to say, the reason I was getting so excited about Marianne, I mean, it's the same reason that people like Trump and Bernie. She's like an outsider. And the fact that she
have penetrated the Van Allen belt, by the way. Yes, but go ahead. Sorry.
All right. Chris, stop interrupting me. Okay.
Sorry. I'm interested. I mean, because I'm a techie, like I'm interested. There are nodes in the Van Allen belt, and it's the kind of radiation only requires thin aluminum. You don't need thick lead. So it depends on the type of radiation, and there's nodes. It's not evenly distributed. You have to go through the node. Keith, you probably know more about this. Sorry, Carrie. I got distracted on the moon landing.
Okay. My point about Marianne is that who else is an outsider who would say something like that? She's like, because that is ageist what he's doing, saying, pass the torch. Basically, he's like, you guys are too old to run. And I love the fact that she's like, you may have a younger body, but you don't have, you can still have the oldest ideas, which is true.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. But she has super old ideas.
What's wrong with super old?
No, she has super old ideas.
Right, but sometimes super old ideas are the best ideas.
Sometimes, but that wasn't her point.
Right.
She was saying new ideas can come in old bodies, but she's not bringing new ideas really. She's just bringing more socialism. They're really not even debating much. Like what their points of agreement were disagreement were very subtle. What did they disagree on, Carrie? Do you remember?
They didn't really disagree much at all. Just that Kamala tried to throw down the gauntlet with Biden.
Well, she did.
Yeah. Call him a racist.
Yeah. She's like, I admire her effectiveness as an instrument of evil on earth.
Somebody said, so she's not running for VP. And I agree with you now after seeing that performance. No, she's not running for VP. She thinks she can beat Biden.
Yeah. Yeah, I think she can beat Biden. But Biden doesn't excite people. And if people are, I mean, you know, they're not really rational who they're going to vote for. But if you want to beat Trump, I don't think Biden's got a chance. But someone like Kamala.
I actually don't think she has a chance because she's too SJW, and I do think the country's finally turning the other way.
Yeah, I don't. Yes, I agree. I think. Fingers crossed. But at least she'll stand up to Trump and take his shit, and I don't think Biden can.
Right, she would.
Biden will appear weak against Trump. She'll appear strong and evil, but strong. All right. Speaking of evil, here's Rachel Maddow.
We are in a second are going to have a question from Lester in the audience, but that was just a fake out.
Let's go. We're going to go to the issue of guns and.
Congressman Swalwell, among this field of candidates, you have a unique position on gun reform. You're proposing that the government should buy back every assault weapon in America, and it should be mandatory. How do you envision that working, especially in states where gun rights are a strong flashpoint?
Keep your pistols, keep your rifles, keep your shotguns, but we can take the most dangerous weapons from the most dangerous people.
What is an assault?
We have the NRA on the ropes because of
what are the most dangerous
because
weapons?
Of the Brady Group, because of Giffords, because of March
Actually,
for Our
pistols,
Lives.
I think, are used in
But
crime
I'm the
mode.
only candidate on this stage
They are.
calling for a ban.
Handguns are like
and buyback of every
90% of all gun crime or something
I've
crazy.
seen the plans of the other candidates here. They would all leave 15 million assault weapons in our communities.
Yeah, you and me
They
both,
wouldn't do
John.
a single thing to save a single life in Parkland. I'll approach this issue as a prosecutor. I'll approach it as the only person on this stage who has voted and passed background checks, but also as a parent of a generation who sends our children to school where we look at what they're wearing so we can remember it in case we have to identify them later.
Oh, shut up.
Has seen thousands
I
of
wonder
black
why
children
I'm not
killed
allowed
in
to
our
arm
streets,
my child when
and
I
a
send her to
generation who
school.
goes to the theater and we actually look where the fire exits are. We don't have to live this way. We must be a country who loves our children more
VP's
than we
David
love our
Hogg.
guns.
Senator
They would go
Sanders.
together well. Malone Bay, man. They would go together well,
Vermont
Chris.
newspaper recently released portions of an interview you gave in 2013 in which you said, quote, "My own view on guns is everything being equal, states should make those decisions."
No.
Has your thinking changed since then? Do you now
older
think there's a federal role
No,
to
that's a
play?
mischaracterization of my
It's a
thinking. Look,
quote of
we
you.
have a gun crisis right now. 40,000 people a year are getting killed. In 1988, Rachel, when it wasn't popular, I ran on a platform of banning assault weapons, and in fact lost that race for Congress. I have a D- voting record from the NRA. And I believe that what we need is comprehensive gun legislation that, among other things, provides universal background. We end the gun show loophole.
I would agree
We
with
end the
confiscating
strawman
all assault
provision.
rifles
And I
by any
believed in
definition you want
1988,
from
and I
the
believe
government.
today.
Why would you
That
leave
assault
Except for maybe
weapons,
the
assault
military
weapons,
Why would you
assault
leave outside
weapons are
the country?
weapons
You leave
from
15
the
million
military, and that they should not be on the streets of America.
You would leave, your plan leaves them on the streets. You leave 15 million on the
We
streets.
banned the sale. We banned
What
the
are
sale.
they? How can you even say 15 million when none of you can agree on a definition of what you're talking about? What
don't
is
know what
assault
they're
weapon?
talking
You're
about.
going to be the government. Will you buy them back?
Yeah.
Senator Harris, we're going to give you 30 seconds.
Thank you. I think your idea is a great one, Congressman Swalwell, and I will say that there are a lot of great ideas. The problem is Congress has not had the courage to act, which is why when elected president of the United States,
She's going to use executive orders.
I will give the United States Congress 100 days to pull their act together, bring all these good ideas together, and put a bill on my desk for signature. And if they do not, I will take executive action.
See?
and
She's
I
a
will put in
tyrant.
place
Carrie, she's a little
the
tyrant.
comprehensive background
Terrifying.
She
I
is
will
terrifying.
require the
Yeah.
ATF to take the licenses of gun dealers who violate the law, and I will ban by executive order the importation of assault
Cassius
weapons. 'Cause I'm
Clay.
gonna tell
Thank you for the reference,
As a
Andrew.
prosecutor,
Nice.
I have seen more autopsy photographs than I care to tell you. I have hugged more mothers who are the mothers of
Kamala
homicide
Harris claims
victims,
to be a good
and I've
shot,
attended
actually.
more police officer funerals. It is enough. It is enough. There have been plenty of good ideas. from
Yes,
members of
Fox Mom says, will the law make outlaws obey it?
I will take action.
Mayor Buttigieg, I want to bring you
She doesn't care.
a lot of discussion about assault rifles that are often shorthanded as military-style weapons. You are the only person on this stage tonight with military experience as a veteran of the Afghanistan war. Will military families, does that inform your thinking on this view? Do you believe that military families or America's veterans will, at large, have a different take on this than the other Americans who we've been talking about and who Congressman Swalwell is appealing to with his buyback program?
Yeah, of course, because we trained on some of these kinds of weapons. Look, every part of my life experience informs this. Being the mayor of a city where the worst part of the job is dealing with violence, we lose as many as were lost at Parkland
for those of you who
aren't
familiar with social justice
and
radical Marxist terminology, fascist is just a
more
term that
guns
they
made
use to
us
mean
safer, we'd
non-Marxist.
be the safest country on earth. It doesn't work that way.
But his point is great. Mr.'s point is great, which is that people on the left will call Trump a fascist, but they have a disconnect where they can't see taking away people's guns as fascist.
Right, but again, fascist just means non-Marxist, and she is a Marxist, so therefore she's not fascist by their definition.
No place in
Yeah, according to them. But that's not what fascism means. That's just the way they do it.
Yeah, they're all everyone on stage is a fascist.
A real 30 seconds.
I'm the only person that's beaten the NRA nationally. I'm the guy that got the Brady bill passed, the background checks, number one. Number two, we increased that background check during the Obama-Biden administration. I'm also the only guy that got assault weapons banned, and the number of clips in a gun banned.
Magazine.
And so, folks, look, and I would buy back those weapons. We already started talking about that. We tried to get it done. I think it can be done, and it should be demanded that we do it, and that's a good expenditure of money. And lastly, we should have smart guns. No gun should be able to be sold unless your biometric measure could pull that trigger. It's within our right to do that. We can't
What a
do
recipe
that.
for
Our
just
enemy is the
an utter
gun
clusterfuck.
manufacturers, not the NRA. The gun manufacturers.
Wait, why? Why do you think so?
I mean, the one thing you don't want, you want a gun to do one thing: fire when you press the trigger. That's it. You don't want biometrics and batteries and crap.
Has inflicted irrevocable harm
You don't want
on our
firmware.
governing institutions and norms, and in the process, on our reputation abroad. The question is, what do you see as important early steps in reversing the damage done?
Exactly.
We'll put this one to Senator Bennett.
Thank you very much. What an
all
excellent
moot.
question. First of all, we have to restore our democracy at home. The rest of the world is looking for us for leadership. We have a president who doesn't believe in the rule of law. He doesn't believe in freedom of the press. He doesn't believe in independent judiciary. He believes in the corruption that he's brought to Washington, D.C. And that is what we have to change. And that's why everybody is up here tonight. And I appreciate the fact that they're up here for that reason. Second, we've got to restore the relationships that he's destroyed
me too, Andrew.
with our allies. Not just in Europe. He flew to the G20 last night and attacked Japan, Germany, and a third ally of ours without saying anything about North Korea or Russia. And when you've got a situation where you have a president who says something happened in the Straits of Hormuz and the whole world doesn't know whether to believe it or not, that is a huge problem when it comes to the national security of the United States of America.
This is the perfect time. Thank you, Senator Bennett. It's a perfect time for me to do another one of these down the line. And this is what this question is, which is you're likely going to have to reset a relationship between America and another country or entity if you become president perhaps because of some relationship that you just mentioned about President Trump. What is the first relationship you like to reset as president? I'll go down the line and I'll start with Ms. Williamson.
Well, one of my first phone calls would be to call the European leaders and say, we're back. Because I totally understand how important it is that the United States.
I thought her first phone call was New Zealand.
Well, I'm trying to get one or two words here.
What?
I hear you, Governor Hickenlooper.
Her first phone call is New Zealand, she said.
The first country I would go to, and I understand they've been cheating and
I thought it would be Deepak
would be
Chopra.
China, because if we're going to deal with public health pandemics, and we're going to deal with all the challenges of the globe, we've got to have relationships with everyone.
Mr. Yang, we're trying to squeeze in a couple more things before we go to another break. Mr. Yang.
China, we need to cooperate with them on climate change, AI, and other issues. North Korea.
Thanks for the quickness. Mayor Buttigieg.
We have no idea which of our most important allies he will have pissed off worse between now and then. What we know is that our relationship with the entire world needs to change. And it starts.
By the way, who would be in Marianne's cabinet?
Okay, Mr. Vice President.
Oprah.
We know NATO part if he's elected 4 more years as the single most consequential alliance in the history of the United States.
Senator Sanders.
It's not one country.
I would love for
think
NATO
it is
to fall apart.
rebuilding trust in the United Nations and understand that we can solve
And the
conflicts
UN. Oh my
without
God, that would
war,
be
but
awesome.
with diplomacy.
Senator Harris.
All the members of the NATO alliance.
Senator Gillibrand.
President Trump is hell-bent on starting a war with Iran. My first act will be to engage
Yes,
Iran
I was going to say Dr. Phil.
and make sure we do not start an unwanted, never-ending.
Yeah, Dr. Phil.
Our European allies.
Dr.
and
Oz, yes.
every country that's willing to have a conversation.
Who's Daniel Guacamole Fox?
I don't know, but I like the name.
My first act in foreign policy, we're breaking up with Russia and making up with NATO.
Thank you all.
Oh,
Thank you all. We have
they said that really well.
last question for Vice President Biden tonight. You have made your decades of experience in foreign policy a pillar of your campaign. But when the time came to say yes or no on one of the most consequential foreign policy decisions of the last century, you voted for the Iraq War. You have since said you regret that vote. But voters trust your
Judge Judy
judgment
for
when it
Supreme
comes to
Court.
making a decision about
See,
taking
they're
the country
trying to
to
tear him
war
down
the
for
next
Elizabeth
time.
Warren,
Because once
but Kamala's going to slide in there.
Bush abused that power, what happened was we got elected after that. I made sure the president turned to me and said, Joe, get our combat troops out of Iraq. I was responsible for getting 150,000 combat troops out of Iraq, and my son was one of them. I also think we should not have combat troops in Afghanistan. It's long overdue. It should end. And thirdly,
Wait, didn't everyone
I
yell at
believe
Tulsi
that
for
you're
that
not gonna
yesterday?
find anybody who has pulled
He gets
together
clapped
more
for
of
the same thing?
alliances to deal with what is the real stateless threat out there. We cannot go it alone in terms of dealing with terrorism. So I'd eliminate the act that allowed us to go into war and not the AUMF, and make sure that it could only be used for what its intent was, and that is to go after terrorists, but never do it alone. That's why we have to repair our alliances. We put together 65 countries to make sure we dealt with ISIS in Iraq and other places. That's what I would do. That's what I have done, and I know how to do it.
Senator Sanders, 30 seconds.
One of the differences that Joe and I have in our record is Joe voted for that war. I helped lead the opposition to that war, which is a total disaster.
This is true.
I helped lead the
That's
effort
thing
for
about
the
Bernie.
first
Look at
time to utilize the War Powers Act to get the United States out of the Saudi-led intervention in Yemen, which is the most horrific humanitarian disaster on earth. And
I like this about him too.
very clear. I will do everything I can to
he's
prevent a
hyperbolic,
war with Iran, which would be far worse than disastrous war with
Senator
Iraq.
Sanders, thank you.
All right, guys.
Informed consent of the American people.
Good news is you get more time to talk, but I have to sneak in one more break.
Be
We
right
will be
back.
right back with
Oh
more
my
debate.
God.
Yes, I like that Bernie is more often than not anti-war. He's a little more like Tulsi.
Yeah, he's a little more anti-war, which is good. The problem is Bernie taps into some real problems, but he offers the diametrically opposed solution to the right one. Right? Like the Wall Street thing, like, yeah, there is cronyism, but it's not capitalism. It's people being in bed with government, central banking. You know, people like Ron Paul had the right solution to that. Instead, the youngins went with Bernie, who's, basically socialism is cronyism on steroids.
John says Trump is anti-war too, much more so than Bush 43 and Obama. Yeah, I agree.
He is. Yeah. Yeah. Which he gets criticized for, John. Yeah, Bernie's totally just a 60s hippie who's still going. Never had a job,
But come on, you don't view what he does as a job.
No.
But
No,
he-
in fact, I think when you calculate productivity in the U.S., when you add up employee wages, you should subtract the wages that go to federal employees or government employees because they are a net loss. They're a tax on the economy. They're not productivity inherently. The government doesn't produce anything. It only slows progress. So you have to subtract that, actually. He's a drag on the economy. He's not a help. He doesn't help.
So there's no government job that you would call a job.
There's no what?
There's no government position that you would call a job.
No.
But
I would not call them jobs.
I don't know if I
Right.
completely
So
understand.
someone just used a great analogy, right? The government, who said it? Andrew. It's the government's a parasite, right? So you can't say I'm a great functioning part of the body. I'm like, no, you're part of the tapeworm, dude. You're part of the tapeworm. You don't get to count.
Building roads, exactly. They build roads.
What about building roads?
What about electrification? What about the stuff that the government has done?
They don't do that. They hire people to do that. They hire private contractors to do that. And even if they did do it, they would tax twice as much as it cost, waste half of it, and then build the road. Roads. Roads existed before the government, guys.
Okay.
Okay, here we go.
Seconds each. We begin with Congressman Swalwell.
We can't be a forward-looking party if we look to the past for our leadership. I'm a congressman, but also a father of a 2-year-old and an infant. When I'm not changing diapers, I'm changing Washington. Most of the time.
Oh, I hate this guy.
Is that a misogynistic dig?
I went to Congress at 31.
I'm not changing
and I found
diapers.
a Washington that doesn't work for people like you and me. It's made of the rich and the disconnected.
I hate him so much.
I was to go to college and have student loan debt. And so I have led the effort.
He also looks like an 80s movie villain. Like he's the guy on the ski slope.
This is a can-do generation.
He's the guy trying to kill James
This is
Bond
the
for the
generation
entire
that
movie.
will end climate chaos. This is the generation that will solve student loan debt. And this is the generation that will say enough is enough and end gun violence. This generation demands bold solutions. That's why I'm running for president.
Congressman, thank you.
Ms. Williamson, 45 seconds for your closing
I'm
statement.
sorry
Keith,
we
now's a
haven't
good
talked
time
more
for your
tonight about
Mark
how we're
Twain
going to
quote.
beat Donald Trump. I have an idea about Donald Trump. Donald Trump is not going to be beaten just by insider politics talk. He's not going to be beaten just by somebody who has plans. He's going to be beaten by somebody who has an idea what this man has done. This man has reached.
He does look like a soap opera actress.
And he's harnessed fear for political purposes. So, Mr. President,
Yes, she is, I think.
I want you to hear me, please. You have harnessed fear for political purposes, and only love can cast that out. So sir, I have a feeling you know what you're doing. I'm going to harness love for political purposes. I will meet you on the field.
I love her. How can you not love her? This is so interesting having her there.
Thank you. My mom and her parents came to the United States to rebuild their shattered lives. In the only country that they could. 300 years before that, my parents' family came searching religious freedom here. The ability for one generation to do better than the next is now severely at risk in the United States, especially among children living in poverty like the ones I used to work for in the Denver public schools. That's why I'm running for president. I've had 2 tough races in Colorado by bringing people together, not by making empty promises.
So by the way, Kerry, the guy who's speaking now actually worked for John Hickenlooper, the other guy,
corruption in Washington,
who was the former governor.
And build a new era of American democracy and American opportunity.
I don't know if they've got a rivalry.
This is going to be hard to do, but it's what our parents would have expected. It's what our kids deserve. I hope you'll join me in this effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Governor Hickenlooper. I'm a small business owner who brought that same scrappy spirit to make Colorado one of the most progressive states in America. We expanded reproductive health to reduce teenage abortion by 64%. We were the first state to legalize marijuana, and we transformed our justice system in the process.
Wait, that vaguely sounds anti-abortion.
In a purple state. We
You
got to
reduced
near
abortion.
universal health care coverage. We attacked climate change with the toughest methane regulations in the country, and for the last 3 years, we've been the #1 economy in America. You don't need big government to do big things. I know that because I'm the one person up here who's actually done the big progressive things everyone else is talking about. If we turn towards socialism, we run the risk of helping to reelect the worst president in American history.
Thank you, Governor.
Senator Gillibrand, you have the floor for 45 seconds. Women in America are on fire. We've marched,
Whoa.
we've organized,
That's a
we've
bigger
run
crisis.
for
I
office,
didn't know about that
and we've won.
crisis.
But our rights are under attack like never before by President Trump and the
Our
Republicans.
rights are under attack? What is she talking
Which is why
about?
I went to the front lines in Georgia to fight for them. As president, I will take on the fights that no one else will. I stood up to the Pentagon and repealed Don't Ask, Don't Tell. I've stood up to the banks and voted against the bailout twice. I've stood up to Trump more than any other senator in the U.S. Senate. And I have the most comprehensive approach for getting money out of politics with publicly funded elections to deal with political corruption. Now is not the time to play it safe. Now is not the time to be afraid of first. We need a president who will take on the big challenges, even if she stands alone. Join me in fighting for this.
Senator Gillibrand, thank you.
Mr. Yang, you have 45 seconds for your closing.
First, I want to thank everyone who put me on this stage tonight. I am proof that our democracy still works. Democrats and Americans around the country have one question for their nominee, and that is who can beat Donald Trump in 2020? That is the right question. And the right candidate to beat Donald Trump will be solving the problems that got Donald Trump elected, and will have a vision of a trickle-up economy that is already drawing thousands of disaffected Trump voters, conservatives, independents, and libertarians, as well as Democrats and progressives. I am that candidate. I can build a much broader coalition to beat Donald Trump. It is not left. It is not right. It is forward. And that is where I'll take the country in 2020.
The only reason libertarians like him is because they believe he will accelerate the collapse.
Thank you. Well, I just want to leave you with a couple of things. One, we need a nominee who has the ability to prosecute the case against 4 more years of Donald Trump, and I will do that. Second, this election is about you.
There's a lot of libertarians who are now collapsitarians.
And your dreams and your fears and what wakes you up at 3 o'clock in the morning. And that's why I have what I call a 3 a.m. agenda.
The SWAT
that
team
is about everything from
Kamala.
what we need to do to deliver health care to how you will be able to pay the bills.
Wait a minute. She's ripping this off from someone. Who's the other president that talked about having like a 3 a.m. phone call?
I will be a president who leads with a sense of dignity, with honesty, speaking the truth, and giving the American family all that they need to get through the end of the month in a way that allows them to prosper. So I hope to earn your support. Please join us at KamalaHarris.org.
Senator, thank you.
Mayor Buttigieg, 45 seconds.
Nothing about politics is theoretical for me.
Yes. Yes. C. Brown. It was Hillary. Hillary had a 3 a.m. phone call ad.
An envelope.
Oh, really?
Yes. She's totally ripping that off of Hillary.
To find it in case I didn't come back from Afghanistan. I've experienced
maybe that's a dog whistle
that exists
to Hillary
by the grace
supporters.
of a single vote on the U.S. Supreme Court. I have the experience of guiding a community where the per capita income was below $20,000 when I took office into a brighter future. I'm running because the decisions we make in the next 3 or 4 years are going to decide how the next 30 or 40 go. And when I get to the current age of the current president in the year 2055, I want to be able to look back on these years and say my generation delivered climate solutions, racial equality, and an end to endless war. Help me deliver that new generation to Washington before it's too late.
Thank you. Senator Sanders, 45 seconds before we do. I suspect people all over the country who are watching this debate are saying, these are good people, they have great ideas. But how come nothing really changes? How come for the last 45 years, wages have been stagnant for the middle class? How come we have the highest rate of childhood poverty? How come 45 million people still have student debt? How come 3 people own more wealth than the bottom half of America? And here is the answer. Nothing will change unless we have the guts to take on Wall Street, the insurance industry, the pharmaceutical industry, the military-industrial complex, and the fossil fuel industry. If we
I see it, Kerry. He's tapping into the frustration, and he's taking on a lot of the right people. He's just doing the 100% wrong thing to take them on.
Thank you, Senator.
Yes. So there's a something in this book I recently read talked about like a dignity gap. He taps into that just like Trump did.
I'm going to lead this country because I think it's important we restore the soul of this nation. This president has ripped it out. It's the only president in our history who has equated racist and white supremacists.
Ooh, national white supremacist.
People. He's the only president
white nationalist fascist. You can cross that one off.
Dictators and thumbed their nose at our allies. I'm secondly running for president because I think we have to restore the backbone of America.
Ooh, I got bingo. I got bingo.
As people. You can't
How come
do
it's
that
just
without
you and me?
replacing them with the
I don't know if anybody else
This is not fair.
Actually, we got to unite the United States of America as much as anybody says we can. If we do, there's not a single thing the American people can't do. This is the United
explain it after the
States
debate,
of
Carrie, because I
America.
want to know what that is.
We
too.
can do anything if we're together. So God bless you all, and may God protect our troops.
He's going firmly in the center. Well, from his perspective.
On a range of issues, 20 candidates in all. We want to thank all of the candidates last night.
Seriously, it takes guts to run and stick your neck out like this to you guys and to the 10 last night.
I would also like to thank the audience for completely ignoring our suggestion not to react.
The Democratic National Committee and the Florida Democratic Party. And of course, thank you to everyone at the Adrian R. Center for hosting us.
We don't need to hear them. Thank everyone. So, Carrie, first of all, that was a hell of a lot of fun.
Yeah, I got much more frustrated than last night, though. I think just because, yeah.
This is an opportunity for us to see what our overlord will be like if anyone beats Trump.
Yeah. Well, so the dignity gap. I was trying to find the exact part in this book so I could be correct about it, but he's basically talking about how in the past, 8 to 10 years or so, there's been this increase in addiction rates, suicide rates, people just feeling like they have no dignity in their job, people who are unemployed. And there's also a correlation between working class men who are unemployed. They also tend to pull out of social life as well. And so he was sort of talking about how both of these candidates, these two very different men, but Trump and Bernie both tapped into they knew what the real malaise was or whatever. They knew what the real problem was. And they tapped into that.
And that problem is called the dignity gap.
I think he called it the dignity gap. I was looking for it, but we'll see.
A gap between what and what? Like former dignity and current dignity?
No, meaning the elite who are making a ton of money doing nonsense jobs, like the woman that testified on behalf of Google yesterday, whose job title is well-being and safety coordinator at Google. Like those people who are making six figures and who have who are celebrated in this culture versus people who do actual real work and couldn't find work. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I don't know what else to say about the debate. Any other comments?
Did you want to end with another Trump response or no?
A Trump response?
Yeah, from my friend or no?
Oh, is he there? Can he do another Trump?
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Actually, before he does that, I have to plug your t-shirts, Carrie. I did it earlier, but I don't think you were there. So Carrie wanted to make these, so we made these.
If I talk, can you still see the t-shirts? Maybe not. These shirts are make Democrats liberal again, which I'm super psyched about because that's my whole point. If they were to actually run a liberal, I would vote for that liberal. I just don't think, especially tonight, none of these people are true liberals. My favorites were Marianne and Yang, the outsiders. Again, the outsiders.
Well, yeah, John, I think you're right. There's a lot more debates, and I'm not going to survive them either. This was just such a circus. I mean, when all the animals show up to the circus, you have to go. All the clowns, when they're all there. But I assume they'll pare it down. I think who do you think the top two are going to be from tonight? I think it's going to be Kamala and I don't know who.
It's either going to be Bernie and Kamala or Biden and Kamala.
Well, the news, the media is definitely, I think, going to support Biden. I imagine, but who knows? I can't tell what their strategy is. They love Elizabeth Warren, so maybe they want to pull down anyone they think can
They love her, and up until tonight, I thought she was going to be the nominee, and I no longer think that.
Wait, are you on my side? Do you think it's going to be Kamala?
I think it could possibly be one of those three: Kamala, Bernie, or Biden.
Yeah.
But she is the worst. She and Swalwell are and Beto are my least favorites.
Yeah, she's effective at being evil. All right, well, with that, everyone, let's listen to a message from the 45th President of the United States.
We're going to have a special treat. Yeah, we're going to have a bad Trump impression.
Apparently, it's still a bad Trump impression, despite
I liked it.
The overwhelming reviews from last night. Okay, here's the Trump response from tonight's Democratic debate. I'm coming to you from Osaka, Japan. I'd like to say that the debate tonight sucked. I flipped over to Pokemon halfway through. Lowest debate ratings ever. Overall, I think the candidates all seem to have pre-existing conditions. Thunderbird's puppet, Eric Swalwell, spoke Spanish. He said, Jose. I was very impressed, very, very impressed. PTA mom, Kirsten Gillibrand, would make an incredible, beautiful, incredible, fantastic Fox anchorwoman. Professional decision maker, Pete Buttigieg. I like him. I would happily make a deal with him outside a liquor store to buy booze for him. I would do that for him. Sleepy, creepy VP Joe Biden. AKA Grabby Hayes. People tell me he's legally deaf and he's had a stroke. It's true. He doesn't know where he is at any given moment. David E. Kelly lawyer Kamala Harris. She's a scary, scary woman. No one wants an American Horror Story in the White House. We don't want that. Angry Bernie Sanders. He's the ranting uncle you strategically don't invite back for Thanksgiving. Marianne Williamson. I love her song As Tears Go By. She's a fantastic, incredible songwriter. Hair Club for Men President John Hickenlooper. All I can say is Rocky Mountain High. Unfortunately, the rest of them, I couldn't pick them out of a lineup. Sock on this, mother effers. Domo arigato.
Thank you for that. Thank you. What you have to snap or do jazz hands.
Oh yeah.
Defensive.
Okay.
All right. Well, on that note, Carrie, I think is it time to end?
Yes, it's time to say goodbye.
All right. Well,
thanks for this. Was fun. You guys in the comments are hilarious.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. And I enjoy interacting with people in the comments. Oh, you know what? I know this is going to sound super cheesy, Carrie, but I need to say it. I've been totally stressed lately, and I'm like not happy with our content. I want it to be better than it is, and I'm like putting a lot of pressure on myself we just don't have time and stuff. But the messages that I get, like I'm not trying to sound sappy. I really love our fan. Like we have very few fans, but you guys are awesome, and you're here, and you're dedicated, and you support us, and it feels really good, and it makes me keep going when this kind of sucks to do all the time with no resources.
Carter works very, 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 very hard, and yes, but I don't stress as much, probably because I don't work as hard as you on it.
I have the Silicon Valley contagion, right? So I once tried to retire, and it lasted about 2 weeks, and then I like jumped in and tried to run a company I was investing in and like I can't not. I'm a workaholic, so that's part of my problem. But anyway, I really sincerely do appreciate everyone. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. You guys are the reason that we're doing this, and we're a small cabal right now still. And I think assuming that we get bigger and spread this message and start having better content and being more effective, which is ultimately what I care about, is being effective. I think we'll always remember these early chats with you guys. So thank you very much. I know that's sappy. So on that note, I will see you all. Carrie and I will both see you all tomorrow for Covfefe.